minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, guys. As you can see, we got Chaz from LowKey Boas coming on this week. Very excited, but before we get rolling, you guys know the routine. Got to talk about US Arc. US Arc is probably going to come up in this conversation a good bit, us both being Boa guys. I'm sure he remembers the early day of US Arc fighting for keeping Boas in the hobby. So, like always, any way we can find a way to contribute, even little things, goes a long way with keeping us all together. So, thank you to that, and let's get this rolling. All right, buddy. So I just want to say one thing. I'm not a last name guy because I tend to butcher them. So if you did want to introduce yourself with your last name, you're more than welcome. I didn't want to mess that up, and I forgot to ask Google.
No, you're all good. It's Chaz Schilens and
All right.
with LowKey Boas, and thanks for having me on, Dave. Appreciate it, man.
No, this is awesome. I mentioned when I called you the other day, I've always really nerded out in the hobby, and I brought up your calendar, which I had to make my background today.
I like it.
When I look back at the hobby, like, I really wish I would have bought more of those little things along the way just so I could have this neat little collection. But all I really have now is just like piles and piles of magazines, which is still cool. A couple old school T-shirts, whatever. But I really wish I was more of a collector of things and less of a collector of animals in the hobby, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I would have made more of them. We talked about I made so few of them, and but the people that I did sell them to, they seem to really appreciate it. And yeah, I always thought like we make these awesome snakes. A lot of them, the quality is amazing. Some of this stuff is the first time we've ever seen it, and to capture those images in what I felt like was a good art form, like a calendar like that, and to try to capture the beauty of the snakes we all work with, I thought was great. It just requires a good amount of work. It's different than taking a cell phone picture or whatever. But yeah, I should really do it more, man. I've had a few people reach out to me, and I liked them personally myself. It just was life gets busy and I kind of got away from it. But I really enjoyed making them, and the people seem to really appreciate them that got them. So
Thought it was a unique idea. I thought all the photos looked really great. Loved all the animals in it. I was a big fan of a lot of the, like I said, red rum. I
yeah,
talk about it a lot. Without red rum, I wouldn't be where I'm at in this hobby right now.
yeah,
I remember following Anthony when he got that first red rum animal that he bred the VPI to.
yep.
And right away I was like, man, if you get babies, please let me know. And I might have got picked a litter. I might not have. I don't know for sure. I know I got one really early on, but that male I got from that litter pretty much
hmm
built my entire boa collection after already having boas. But that one, game changer.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny you said that because that had to be in 2008 or nine, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
I was working up in Northern California, and I saw some of the snakes. I think back then in the day it was what was the forms that we all looked at? It was king
I
snake,
did
but
king
was it
snake
the
a
other
lot.
one? Yeah.
Well, I know there was some boa forms. I wasn't nerdy enough to do that. I was like king snake, and I go to VPI and look at their diaries and look at their
Oh yeah,
bragging
Tracy's
posts.
Diaries. Oh, I used to live for Tracy's Diaries. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was all we had back in the day. We're so spoiled now, but I think I met Tony. That's how I met him. I think was on Kingsnake. I saw him post a couple things, and I was just reached out to him like, "Hey, man, like, I would just love to come down and see some of this stuff." And I took my camera because I just bought a nice camera at the time, and I remember the first time he opened the cage of that original red rum female, and I was like, what the
Yeah.
what is that like? Because back in the day, we're spoiled now, but 15, 20 years ago, like to see some of these like true pastels, like that female was as red as a fire truck. It was so nuts. And then when he had that litter from the double dose Pink Panther, I think it was pretty much the pick of the litter that Tracy made. It was like I'd never really seen snakes like that, to be honest with you. And I had seen a good amount of snakes, but snakes with actual that much color and saturation and that quality were unrivaled, like unrivaled. I remember that litter like it was yesterday, man. It was like, it was like an out of body experience. It was crazy.
Yeah, I was super excited to have an opportunity to buy one, and I'm not even afraid to talk about it because I bring it up. But like, I want to say VPIs around that time were probably like 1,000 to 1,500 bucks, and I think you wanted like 5,000, and I didn't even bat an eye. And I was very
Oh,
poor back then. Like, I was still like a pizza delivery boy after being like a plant manager, and I was on this like in between phase of trying to like become a full time reptile guy. And
yeah,
man, I just found a way to get that money together. But again, I almost lost that animal one too, which would have ruined my entire life.
yeah.
I had a small room in a little apartment in Buffalo, New York, and I had it in a rack with some blood pythons. It was an animal plastics rack that had the 12-inch sheet that ran down both sides. It had like the
Mm-hmm.
two interchangeable tubs. Well,
Yeah.
just before I left that weekend to go out of town, I took them out. I put them in a CB70. When I was gone, the girlfriend time rolled the rack off the wall because one of her geckos got out, pulled the probe out, killed every single animal in that rack. Luckily, and I mean luckily, that animal got moved that day beforehand. I'd be in a very different place in the hobby if it wasn't for that one moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all have similar stories of, like critical failures or stuff that it could have destroyed you or things did go badly, but thank God you didn't because yeah, the animals you've been able to produce just with that, just from that lineage or they're really, I mean, there's a lot of good quality pastel lines nowadays, but I've always felt I might be a little biased, but that sits at the very top. Like people, it's recognizable, it's you're able to replicate it, and the quality is always just amazing. And everybody loves red rums. You'll never come across someone who's like, nah, that's not for me. They may like something else too, but dude, the red rums, especially that come from Tony's founding stock, are nuts. And that's what a lot of these guys nowadays all have. Like that's what Thomas has. That's why Thomas's boas are so insane, is because they're all directly from the founding stock, which is it's really impressive, man. Really
Yep.
impressive.
When I re-upped on that project years later, it was of course with Thomas Cobb, but he made that really nice Junglo red rum litter, and he had one that had like a perfect
Hmm.
stripe, like a pinstripe.
Hmm.
So
Oh
I was
yeah.
able to talk him out of that male, and he kept the other male, which I know he put into breeding, but that male has gone through a lot of different projects, including some Red Panther hypo stuff and some Red Panther
Mhm.
animals. And I just had like, I don't even know what generation it is, but the offspring from my first Red Panther Red Rum combo, I took that baby and bred it back to one of my original Monster Tail Red Rum VPIs, and
Mhm.
I made a phenomenal litter. The only thing that makes me sad is, I always enjoy refining it, making them look better and better, but I'm a little afraid that the days of just simply refining the VPI to make it more colorful are behind us because it's really now more about some of this other stuff we're putting into it, include
Yeah.
like double recessives is the way of putting it. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would agree with you. It does seem like everyone's racing towards recessives and adding stuff, but I think there are, dude. I can name a few people that come to mind, like Joe Cooper, James Gladden. Dude, they're making crazy quality color stuff, and it seems like they're just focused solely on and maintaining that original like bright red, and yourself. But yeah, I mean, hopefully over time it doesn't get too diluted, but dude, the stuff that I've seen from a few guys still is like I don't have anything like that. I don't have anything that red. Like Joe Cooper just had a litter of red rum labyrinths that are like
Next
the
level.
they're like some of the craziest things I've ever seen. I know James Gladden has got some too, and they're I feel like they did a good job of upholding the original quality of what Tony produced and where it came from. And I mean, dude, it's nuts. I do hope that as time goes on and we get more and more combos and recessives and all this stuff mixed together, that I do hope that there are still some breeders out there that take time to line breed, however you want to say it, or keep the quality of the original morph. So yeah, it's hard because, dude, think about it. Like back in the day when me and you were getting started, we just had jungles, motleys, VPIs. We had very basic stuff.
Yep.
Aztecs were still new. I bought my first jungle in 2008, 8 for like $2,700. Like it was like, and it was just because that's what I could find. Like they were still incredibly rare. Nowadays, we're so spoiled that I truly don't think that a lot of the newer keepers and hobbyists realize how lucky we are when you open up Morph Market and you just see VPI, Aztec, Jungle, Motleys, Red Rums, Red Panthers, Pastel Dream, Monster Tails, Key West, all this stuff. You're just like, oh, that's nice. But the process of how we got to be there is it's built on the back of people doing really, really hard work for like 2 decades plus. Like it's it's nuts. So I'm at least I'm glad I've been around long enough to appreciate how truly hard it was and like where we came from. Because I remember like Chris Nicholas tells the story. I met Chris Nicholas in 2008, and Chris Nicholas, other than Jeremy Stone, was pretty much the father of Motley's.
Yeah.
Like he was producing Motley's in the mid 2000s when nobody had Motley's, and he was selling them for wild amount of money. And he always told me, he's like, Chaz, I used to have people call me on the phone and just be like, "Do you have a Motley?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I have one. What sex do you want?" And they wouldn't ask for a picture, they wouldn't ask for a video. He was like, "I just want a Motley." And that's
Yeah.
how far we've come, is that it used to be that scarce that people would do almost anything just to get a single gene co-dominant morph. and, and now you open up morph market and you see 4, 5, 6, 7 genes, and people don't even bat an eye as to how incredibly rare they are, powerful they are, and how hard it was to get to where we are now today. So I know that's probably like a little off tangent, but yeah, it's nuts. There's not a day that goes by that I don't see people's collections or I see stuff that's posted on Morph Market or Instagram, and I'm like, God damn, like
Yeah.
it's nuts. It's really nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's a real emotion to have about it too, man. And I always talk about it when I try to explain to other breeders in the community. I've got a lot of ball python friends, and I'm all like, you guys are fucking spoiled. I was like, every 15 minutes you got something new. Me personally, I just hatched out 2 brand new morphs out of the incubator this week that I haven't even done anything with, that I gotta move forward on. Did I lose completely, bud? Oh, there you go.
Sorry, bro. Hold on. I'm right here. I apologize. My timer went off.
No, you're okay, man.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to get you back, but
that's fine. Usually I'm technical difficulties.
Gotcha.
I'm glad it's on you.
It's my fault. It's my fault.
No.
Yeah, like you're right. I study and think about the ball python market almost every day too. And I see the success you guys have. I see the variety of genes you guys have. I see all this stuff, and your window of breeding is so much farther condensed, and how powerful of genes you guys have is so much more complex that it does make it easier for you guys. I have a lot of respect for you guys, but what you guys are doing, it's a little bit easier. Your time span to breed's shorter. Your ability to raise up snakes, your ability to breed females back to back, your ability to breed males at an extremely young age. It helps a lot. It's stuff that we don't have in the boa game, but it's a different morph. You guys have a lot more competition. You guys have a lot more genes out there. You guys have your own issues and stuff that makes you guys specific to what you guys do.
Well, I will say in that part of the industry, it just moves so much faster than boas. And one thing I mean by that too is price plummets. I remember buying that first red rum, and then it took me almost 3 years before I bred that male, and I bred him to a monster tail het VPI and made some really beautiful big pattern red rums. And I was still able to sell those animals for $5,000 3 years after investing $5,000 on it. So you don't really get that in a ball python. Sometimes these prices will come back up, and here the same thing happens in boa constrictors. Black-eyed anery kind of got pushed to the wayside, and now I think black doubles are still around $2,000 on the table, and just for a base model you're $500.
Yeah I've always found that interesting too, is that there are some forgotten morphs that do kind of gain popularity. I feel that way about bloods and leopards too, is that a few years ago people were just kind of like, nah, and even 15 years ago, it was extremely taboo to breed bloods and leopards into VPIs and to cross them. There's kind of people that want to keep everything separate. But now, you people want bloods het leopards, leopards het bloods, blood leopards, VPI leopards. People want that stuff. It's extremely desirable. I feel like it's definitely gained popularity again, just like RDRs. Like, yeah, I mean, because people are you're finally seeing the fruit of what people have been working hard on over all these years with carbons, with specters, with blood leopards, VPI leopards, all this stuff, and it's undeniable. I think that those are the projects of the future, at least in my opinion. So
the projects of the future are literally the projects of the past that took us 20 to 25 years to finally make double, triple visuals of.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
the ball python industry is kind of the same way because it was so easy to pump out these codoms that there wasn't really, the building was just building more codom on codom, where it was less about the double, triple recessives. And now the boas kind of were the same way. We had a few codoms to play with. They were making us good money. Labyrinth came in at the end there. Fire came in at the end there. And there was still money to be made. But now, like, Habanero project, man, love that project.
Yes.
Those leopard snow glows you made, unbelievable looking animals.
Appreciate it.
So, no, and, too, like, with that, like, where with how we work the art, now you could refine that with different pastel lineages, kind of change things up a little bit. Like, there's always a way to improve on it. But, back to where I am now and where I need to be, it's really cool that I've spent the last decade improving on simply VPI sunglows and VPI combos. But now I need to put that lineage into my bloods, and I need to put that lineage into my leopards. I really need to kind of take it further.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to go about it, though, because it's better than just not having any quality bloodlines to mix it back into. And that's something Thomas kind of talks about it every now and then, is that like the art of like refining something or improving on it is king, because even if it takes you a couple extra years, like when you go to make those outcrossed VPI blood red rum stuff, the quality of your end product is going to be far superior to even people like myself or other people that are just mixing whatever they can to get ahead. So to have that quality like in the rack while you're already raising it up, I think it's going to pay off, because even I, like, to be really honest, I have a lot of hets. Some of the hets, they're good quality, but not everything is top tier quality. And then I check Instagram and I see breeders like yourself, and I see a few other guys that I've already mentioned, and their quality is far superior to anything I have. And I'm like, God damn, I wish I had 10 crazy red rums and visual red rum, Aztec, IMG, whatever in my rack, but I don't. I've sacrificed it to make hets and to make other stuff, but it's kind of the way I've approached it. But they're thank God that we do have people like you that have kind of maintained that quality and been there, because it's easy to get caught up just crossing stuff, just trying to make new stuff and not focusing on the highest quality you can. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, there's multiple ways to skin a cat is what I guess I'm getting at. And you're doing it a very specific way, and that way it 100% will work.
Yeah, and I've been talking about this a lot lately on the podcast, but like, I'm not in the Black-Eyed Annery VPI project yet. So that's like one of like the higher, like I need to go out and get that animal this year to start putting into all the IMG stock VPI stuff I have for I've been holding back. I'm not sure I'm going to put my colors into it quite yet. What's your opinion on that, on like the RDR VPI stuff? Do you think putting like nice red rum lineage into that is a plus, or do you think with that we should be keeping it so it keeps that darkerness to it?
Yeah, you kind of caught me in a middle ground, because I do like when I like when they're dark too. I know exactly what you're talking about. Kenny's made some really dark stuff. My friend Brad Sherman's made some really dark, like just pitch black RDR Aztec stuff. But I do think adding in red rum, like who was it? Is it Corey Padilla? Or yeah, I think so. He's made some RDR red rum stuff. I think it's going to create a more contrast, lighter snake that probably is even a little bit more attractive as an adult. Like I would do it. I don't see the negative behind it. It just creates a different look, which I think is awesome, because we used to have, like, when VPIs first came out, we used to have like
regular VPIs. There used to be, Tracy used to have Widow Peak VPIs. She used to have Bone White VPIs. And she used to have all these kind of different little looks. And she'd send me stuff and I'd be like, wow, that is something I've never even thought of. But if we could kind of replicate that with like different looks of specters or different looks of carbons, I think it would be cool to have, hey, well, maybe these carbons are a little lighter, maybe they're not as dark, but man, the contrast of the white background popping with the black, extremely black saddles, maybe that'll make a better looking snake. I don't know. We won't know till we do it. So I'd say have at it, man. I think it's going to be great either way. Either way.
No, and what is it? So Tracy used to talk about like her yellow VPIs bred to her anearthristic for her snow project that always make the most crisp looking snows. And I've got a large female here that gave me a litter this year, and she is absolutely crisp.
Yeah.
And honestly, she's probably one of my favorite adults I have for just a VPI snow.
I forgot about those. I forgot about those too. Yeah, she used to send me this stuff, and I'm like, what is that? And it was like, oh, come to find out, it's like 10 years of selective line breeding to produce more yellow stuff, bone white stuff, Widow Peak. Like, she used to have all this stuff, and I used to be like, oh, I like that. And then she'd show me something else. I'd be like, that's a VPI? Like, oh, God, I like that. And then she'd show me Pink Panthers, and I'd be like, huh, like, it's crazy. It's crazy what she did way back in the day, and we're all still trying to catch up to her. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like those yellow VPIs, like God bless you. Good for you staying on that, because I forgot about it. Like even me.
I think, and Warren Booth will call me and correct me if I tell any stories wrong on this podcast, but I'm pretty sure the original VPIs were that Pink Panther look, and I think they got a second animal from the Bells later on, and that was more of where their yellow lineage came from. It was like an import through the Bells.
Yep. That's what I remember.
Yeah, and talking black-eyed anery, for years I've been kind of mentioning, ever since Big Mike started doing the blizzards and all that, crossing into the calls and the sharps, I've always looked at that project of being more of an axanthic project and less of an anearthristic project. So that's just my opinion, just the way that they act in the albino. And with that being said, I think that's why we have completely different looking snows when you go those routes, and why they're not compatible when you try to put that one with the other type 1 anery.
Yeah, I think that's a good explanation. I have a friend that thought the same exact thing that you just said, and the first time she said it to me, I thought, yeah, you're probably exactly right, because the phantoms, like the phantoms that Mike has made, there's really nothing that looks like that. That's a completely different look, and it does remind me of axanthic ball pythons. Like when I looked at those side by side, I'm like, that probably isn't like your regular anearthristic. So yeah, I mean, there's still so much to be done with that. It's crazy because there's a lot of people that don't even know what phantoms are, what blizzards are, like understand the working of the RDR or the BEA gene. Like I'll get people that message me and they'll be like, what's that? And I'll be like, I mean, it's 2025. There's so much of these animals out there, but there's still so much education that needs to be done, like informing people of the lineages, the compatibility. People still ask me, well, is it compatible? In my opinion, and I'll be the first to tell you, I used to be the first one, one for the longest time to say that BEA and RDR are two separate genes. And this happens in ball pythons all the time. And it's readily acknowledged and accepted. But you have Blitz, Trick, I think they're two separate genes, but they're compatible. They do the same exact thing. And that's what we found out, the same thing with RDRs and BEAs. They're two separate genes from two completely different lineages. From the BEAs from the Potts and RDRs are from Ralph Davis. They happen to be compatible, but I have all these animals. They're not the same. You can breed them together, you'll produce BEAs and RDRs, but still it's two different lineages. I know I got off on a tangent, but I get asked all the time because people simply don't understand a lot of these genes that we all use every day.
No, that's not a tangent. You're just breaking down your thought process on looking at the genes, which I do the same thing on this. And my thing, because here's my opinion on that, and I've talked about it a few times. The carbon and the Spectre, the reason you get such a big difference is I believe the Spectre project just has more Central American blood influence based on a percentage.
Yeah.
Where the Potts animals, I think that animal cycled through Colombians for maybe multiple generations to get a more Colombian blood. And that's why you get a different, more cleaner, more what looks like a Colombian influenced adult animal.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Because if you remember, when the pots were making just mind-blowing Aztecs back in the day, 2005, 6, 7, 8,
Yep.
and they started to pop out uh, BEAs. They call them translucent boas. But
Yep.
they had their Aztecs. If you look at their founding Aztec stock, they used to have the reddest Aztecs ever. Still
Mhm.
to this day, if they showed you like, and they used to call them rubies. And when they started making translucent bows, which were just BEAs, their quality of color that they had already mixed into the project was already mind blowing. And that's exactly why you see to this day the snakes that Kenny Saito produces, the carbons and the BEAs are so nice and so much lighter than where we are today with the Spectres, is because they were already refining them without knowing, and then Kenny took it and refined it even more. But I was there. I saw the original animals that Big Mike got from Ralph Davis, from Ralph Davis, and
Really?
the original RDR stuff was more unrefined. It was darker. It was not the same I don't know if you call it quality, but I mean Ralph was just making RDRs. He was making bows with what he had. Meanwhile, the pots were mixing hypo in there, and whatever they had going on, dude. Like if you go back in 2003, 4, 5, Kenny Saito's founding like carbon animals were brick red, like brick red. And it's because they had that BEA gene mixed in with, like you said, and with the Colombian gene. And I think they were just refined without them knowing. So it's pretty cool to see. But we're getting there. But if you ask me, like right now, yeah, BEAs are definitely a more refined, attractive, prettier looking snake to date. But that doesn't mean that specters aren't beautiful. It doesn't mean that we can't get to the point of making specters that are on par with them. But they're still just different looking snakes. I feel like they're more speckled. They're a little bit smaller body tone, and
Yeah.
they're more central. They have more central blood.
Which is okay. And here's the thing too, like I love the Spectre. That one video posted, you're like maybe 6 or 8 back, where you've got the Labyrinth IMG snow in there, you got the other snow at the top, and then you have just the
Mhm.
Spectre at the bottom.
Yeah,
Love that dark pigment on the pattern. I think it's an unbelievable looking animal. Um, you know, I imagine what I would make would probably look more like the pot stuff, again, depending on where I get
yeah,
my stock from, just based on the fact that I'll be probably reading red rum to it. And I
yeah,
think it would probably do that like overall cleanup look, like you're saying, but I like that dirtier, high contrast look you get in the Spectre.
yeah. I do too. Some of the speckling with age, but that dark, rich contrast of that snake that you talked about in the video,
Yeah.
that was actually produced by Michael Masters. Give him a big shout out. But that look, I love that a lot. If I could preserve exactly it almost looks like ash or like I don't know, but that's exactly what I like. But I like it all. I mean, I like what Kenny produces. I like I love all the different looks of that complex of the BEA and RDR, but I'm all for people improving it. I'd love to see more red rum worked into it, and dude, the sky's the limit. It really is. You're just at the tipping point of what of working that specific complex, because there's still probably less than, I bet there's less than 30 specters or carbon snows out there right now.
You're probably right.
There's-
And when you talk about like what's going to happen or like an idea of what the future is going to be, even the ball python community, and I make a lot of comparisons to the ball python community just for the fact that it's hard not to compare things to it. It's kind of like the engine of the hobby in the way, like a lot of money goes through that community, and a lot of things happen fast.
it
But
does.
like, where that community just now has figured out you should put desert ghosts in everything. They had desert ghosts back in 1999 and really didn't give a shit about it for almost 25 years. And now if it's not in the project, it's a worthless project.
Yeah,
And Xanthic too, man. Now it's all about Xanthic DG stuff, and they're going a completely different direction with everything. So
yeah.
it's we're figuring we're gonna figure out our way in the process. I like the Type 1 Anery Snows. I've got a lot of Orange Chasm lineage here from Frank, making great animals, but man, I really think that the Spectre and Carbon is the future. Like, I think that's where our next 10 years is going to go at least.
I have been saying this for a few years now. For the few people I talked to, I've told them that there is without a doubt, VPI snow glow stuff is insane, and it's only getting better. And there's a ton of people doing great stuff with them. John Bannister does great stuff. Corey Padilla does great stuff. Thomas, everyone knows these guys. But
Yep.
I truly think that we will get to a point very soon where there will be a huge shift, and everyone will want to get in on the Spectre project. If to be really honest, and they already are. I get quite a few messages. If I could produce more, I would sell more, because everybody wants that specific type of looking snake. That it's a different type of snake, especially when you see it in person. Like, the videos and pictures are merely interesting. When the first time, I remember when I made one back in 2008, I just remember staring at it like, I've never seen anything like that. Like, that's a different look. That's a different look. And I think it'll only gain more popularity. And I do think 15 years down the road, I think that VPI snow glow stuff will take a backseat to Spectre stuff. It is that impressive. And I haven't seen all the snakes, but I've seen almost all the snakes that are that are really out there. And I'm telling you, it blows me away when you see this stuff. It blows me away.
So when I say this, I don't mean this in a bad way, but where moon glows aren't really a thing in the hobby anymore. You're not really seeing any call aneries, call hypoaneries. Someday, like you said, when these black eyes, these carbons, all this kind of take over that higher end market, you may see the snow glows as that $500 animal like the moon glow was, and it might just be that new pet market animal. And lucky ass sons of bitch that's a pet animal at some point for somebody.
Yeah, to imagine for that to be your starting, like, foundational animal, that even if it's just a pet, would be pretty amazing, considering that for the past, since Kyle Frost made the first one in, what was it, 2000? Was it like 2008 or 9? Somewhere around there.
A lot happened around then.
Yeah, but for that morph to have that much popularity and for it to be sustained still to this time, like, Thomas could post a crazy one and sell it in a heartbeat for a good amount of money. So for it to still be that popular 16, 17 years down the road, I think is a kudos to everyone. But yeah, at some point it's going to drop and it'll be more readily available for your beginning hobbyist, and it'll be insane, because my first boa was a hypo boa, and I could not have been happier to have a peachy hypo from Mike Weitzman, and fast forward 25 years later, people are starting off with VPIs, and VPI snows as probably some of your first boas is pretty crazy.
I think my first big investment was around like 2002, 2003. Because right when I got out of high school, man, it was just all about making, like, when I found out about the hobby, I was just like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And this guy at the pet store, like, turned me onto it, talked to me about what was going on. And I think I spent, and I still have the invoice, I want to say it was either $1,500 or $2,000 with Rich Eiley for a salmon hypo. And I don't know if it was A grade, B grade, C grade. No, it was either A, AA, AAA, or something like that.
Yes.
But I got the invoice. We're done. I'm going to send you a picture of it, because I had Rich Eiley on the podcast not that long ago, and I made sure to start it out by like, man, I still got this invoice, but
that alone, that proves you're a real boa head. Because if you brought that up today, people would be like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, everybody knows you used to go on salmon boa, bro. Let me see what that grade is. Is it a K? Is it a KK? That's because those are the ones you wanted. Like, the way he graded snakes and priced them accordingly. I could never afford any of them because I was in college and I was broke. But dude, Rich Eiley's salmon boa website and his boas he was making back in the day were nuts. Like, nuts. I used to daydream day and night. Like, how do I get one of these things? I wanted one of those super salmons where it looked like the tail was melting into cotton candy. You know what I'm talking about? Like, he'd have whole litters of them. He's breeding super salmons to super salmons, like back in the mid 2000s when you couldn't even get a salmon boa alone was still, like you said, $1,500, $2,000. Like, it took me till 2000. Oh, yeah, I could never afford any of that stuff. My memory is failing me, but I remember that website like it was yesterday. God damn, that's great.
I frequent that website a good bit, and the Bloody Salmon project he had going on in there, some of the pinstripe pets that he had on there were baller. He got in all that Scoria stuff early on when Scoria was like getting ready to almost completely fall off.
Yeah. He lives about 15 minutes down the street from me. I run into him every now and then.
Really?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go over his place a couple times. But yeah, he had all that stuff way back in the day. Like he really is truly a founding him, Tracy, Jeff, those dudes were really the founding fathers of a lot of what we have today. Without them, we would never have Tracy. I mean, dude, we would never have any of that stuff. Like he revolutionized really nice salmon boas, and I think he did a good job of marketing himself and advertising and showing what's like really possible. Like because it was so rare. Like if there was no salmonboa.com, where were you going to go to see like crazy salmon boas? Like you weren't going to go anywhere. You didn't even know they really existed.
He was really good about posting all his litters on there. He showed the parents, all the babies, and the breeding records page on his thing. I always frequent that, and I think it still exists. I don't know if you got to go on the time or the time machine, whatever it is, where you can go look at the old .coms. But
Yeah.
I did stalk him a little bit before we had him on the podcast a few months ago. But it was such an easy podcast because I had already obsessed over him for like the last 25 years of my life. You know, we
Bro.
could have talked for probably 10 hours, to be honest with you.
Oh, bro, he's like a legend to me. When I see him, I'm like, I feel like he's a living legend. Like I feel
Yeah.
fortunate to have met him, to have a little bit of relationship with him because we would have it's beating a dead horse, but we would have none of this stuff without people like him. And I remember that exactly too. Like the way he would show, because everyone posts baby boas. Baby boas look great, but he was posting adults that were
Yeah.
nuts. Like when you're showing adults that look that good with age at 4 or 5 years old, I remember being like, I just was like, it was something so cool and so special that I'm glad I was around to be able to see it. Yeah.
No, it was a great time to be stalking the internet at like 3 or 4 people, like you said. There's just a couple sites I'd frequent like every day in case there was an update.
Oh
My
yeah.
biggest regret, man, I had photo buckets back then, so full of images like you wouldn't believe. And then one day they like, you had to start paying. I didn't know, and then it's all just gone now. And I imagine all these pictures in my head gone forever.
Yeah. I remember the photo bucket too. I had all that stuff. I remember I never paid for it. They'd email me like, "Hey, this is your last opportunity." I'm like, "It is what it is." But Mike Weitzman do you remember when Mike Weitzman used to post up like his whole photo bucket of just 100, 200 just of the craziest looking snakes? And I remember like I just go through the whole thing because our main way of advertising. Like King Snake was one way, but photo bucket I believe was free,
Yeah.
and it was the best way to kind of differentiate yourself from King Snake. So I think Kyle Frost used to use that. Class Reptilia, like Ron from Class Reptilia used to use that. But man, things have changed a lot. How easy is it now for people just to post anything at a whim on Instagram or Morph Market and the whole world sees it? Because yeah, back in the day, we had to just go on all these little forums too, just to even talk or to share a picture. Like it was so, you remember uploading a picture? I remember getting so frustrated. Like if you'd have a bad internet connection, like I'm trying to upload 3 pictures and just take me like 30 minutes just to be like, I just want to get this thing uploaded. But
Yeah. I did a lot of that in my office at work. The internet was great there. So I was just building that thing up every day. Like I'd be going through it every day, adding to it. It was nice. Like I said, I really wish I still had it. There's some real gems lost forever in there, but
yeah.
is what it is, man. You know, internet's
Yeah.
not forever, apparently.
Yeah, I remember all that stuff. That's crazy. You're taking me back, bro. That's crazy.
You know, another thing I really like about the bows too, like, you know, we're talking about all these mutations that kind of got things rolling, and like, you know, we had Ron St. Pierre on recently. We've had him on a bit, and you know, he talked about being down at man, what's that big importer down in Florida? Starts with an S. I should know his name. Where the Motley boa came from. Wow, this is embarrassing. I'm so in this boa conversation. I can't remember importers now. It's gonna ring a bell, but he was at this importer's place, and they had the Motley boa on their for sale list forever, and it was like I think $2,500 he said for the original. And he went in there one day to do a trade, or he was like selling some animals to him, and he looked at that thing while he was looking at Motley corn snakes, and that's why he called it the Motley boa.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's where the first one came from. And I'll remember the importer's name when we get done with this, or mid-conversation I'll remember. But he ended up getting that animal. And Ron St. Pierre, of course, is the first guy to pull the first type 2 anery and blood boa out of a bag, the El Salvadors.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, same bag, a blood and an aneurystic, I believe, came out of his, the way he put it. Then, you talk about Tracy Barker, the VPIs got brought into her pet store. She refused them. They got sent back out. The lady brought them back again to try to sell them to her. Rich Eiley sold the original salmon boa, happened to get babies back when the people accidentally bred it. And
The Potts brothers did the same thing. The Potts brothers did the same thing with the Aztecs.
Yeah,
I think
sold
they
to a
sold it.
culture, right?
Yeah, that a lot of that stuff is by chance. Like the Sterling boa, Ken Bart. How do you say his last name? Bargman.
I can't pronounce it. I follow him on Facebook. I'm horrible at last names. I don't even try.
Yeah, his, I believe, but those were both just rescues, right? The original founding pair.
And I think he said they looked really nice, like they were really clean and pastel, and that's why he put them together, and he just happened to make it. And prior to that, there was those guys in North Carolina that we believe now was a Partho litter. Do you remember the original Sterling before the Sterling?
Yeah, it was called. Table? They called it a. It wasn't a Joker. They called it what they call it. They called it something. I remember what you're talking about though. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's when Harlequin blew up because they said Harlequin was in the pairing. So everybody had to go buy Harlequin at that point.
Yeah, I remember those. I remember that exact litter.
And the sad thing, the guy now lives, I believe, in Vegas. He's an indigo breeder now. Again, I'm really bad at some of the old school names, but that was another picture of my photo bucket, a rack of balls on a pool table with that thing sitting on top. But from what I can remember, it was a Peruvian female bred to a Harlequin male, and they believe that the female actually parthoed. And fast forward to now, because that was like mid-2000s, Jeff Ronnie got that female, bred it to a Peruvian, got hets or held back a male, bred it back to mom, and you made patternless from that original Peruvian female just a few years ago.
No joke. I did not know that.
Yeah, that stuff gets lost in time when you have an animal that does something like that years prior. And I want to say the people that produced that first animal had a heating malfunction in their room and it killed all the babies. That, or because they were Partho babies, they died. And maybe the story was a heat accident. It's hard to say.
Yeah. I wonder how many accidents or stuff like that's happened over the years where projects that we don't even know about have just disappeared. Like I've had thermostat malfunctions. I've had accidents over years. I think it happens to all of us. We don't always talk about it, but I mean, there are so many hidden projects. And that's another thing where I think the ball python people are so incredibly lucky because that condensed time window of you able to reproduce. I think you guys stumble onto so many just out of the blue morphs that and then you guys capitalize on them so much quicker. That it's really cool to see. Like I love your guys. I don't breed ball pythons. I did for a little bit, long time ago, but I love the way you guys identify new morphs, the way you guys figure out the best combinations and just capitalize on it, because the tiniest little subtle enhancing morph, you just have to find the right thing to combo it with and everything blows up. Like yellow belly, red stripe, these are all things why I saw back in the day. I'm like, red stripe. Even I saw Kyle Frost used to have some red stripes. I'm like, that's nothing. That's nothing at all. And Kyle used to be like, no, well, it is a little redder, and you check this out. Well, now fast forward, everything that Justin Kabalka does is red stripe this, yellow belly this. I saw yellow bellies too. I'm like, but people in the boa world will get something that's different, unique, or a subtle morph, and they'll just discard it. And that's what something I actually want to talk about is like, we don't do a good job of identifying and maximizing all the morphs that we have available to us. And just off the top of my head, like Marin is a good morph, a completely written off morph, square tail, raptor. These are all little morphs that almost nobody works with anymore. And you never know when you're going to hit the right combo of something, and it's going to create something that's a completely different look that you cannot replicate with any other breeding. And I just wish there are breeders out there, including myself, that I could do a better job of trying to figure out like a way to incorporate some of these kind of like lost morphs. I don't know if that's making any sense.
No. So I just recently had a Marin litter, but it was a misidentified female, and the male definitely was for sure. Produced in house, but I wanted super Marins, man, because other than those 2 or 3 original images, I've never seen more. And
Yeah.
the Sangria buddy. What happened to the Sangria project?
Exactly. That's another one. That's another one too. Mike still has hets, double het sangria calls, but I don't know. Like that's another thing in my. If you go back and you go back and look at original bloods. Original bloods, they're not much to write home about. Like they're really not. They've been improved upon so much. But if you go back and you look at the original sangrias, and it's slipping my mind. I forget the guy that founded the project. I believe he's in California.
He's definitely a California guy.
Yeah, but anyways, if you go back and you look at the original pics of the founding Sangria boas, they were amazing. Like they were so beautiful right off the bat that when I saw them, I'm like, oh, I got to do Sangria everything. And I just haven't, I was never able to produce anything. I never got into it, but I always thought that's another one too. Like Sangrias are far superior to bloods. Just look them up. Like look them up. They look like Supermarins. They really did. But yeah, today your average keeper in 2025, if you said that, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about. It's a completely dead morph.
Yeah, and like I said, it's cool to bring back the old things and reinvent them because, like I said, I think we look over things. I think we get caught up in the trends, and that's like one of the hardest things. And like when you brought up the Phantom Boa even earlier, like Boa Woman Carmel got destroyed because it was allelic with sharp. Where would that project be today? That project might be a little further ahead than VPI because the richer colors involved in that one.
Yep. If you go back and look at Sharon Moore's first litters when she was producing Boa Woman Caramels, they were nuts, man. Like I remember Mike showing me, and I'm like, they were far superior to VPIs. And that's another thing where I remember the first VPIs, like the first couple ones that I saw in person. And I remember kind of being like, used to have this buddy, Ruben Mitchell, up in Northern California, and he had a couple of the first VPIs. And I remember going over there and I just kind of remember being like, they're okay. Like they were nice, but they're nothing at all like what people identify VPIs like today. They weren't. The original quality of some of them were just okay. But the original quality of BWCs were crazy nice. I remember seeing them and being like, that's special. Yeah, and if we could have fast forward 15 years down the road, they probably would have rivaled anything VPI that's out today. But Russian T positives.
Yep.
That's another thing too. Nobody knows about those, but those completely disappeared from the map. And they were cool. They were really cool. They were just different. But I wish there was a place for them or a breeder that just was crazy enough to be like, I'm just going to be the best Russian T positive breeder ever. And because I think we could use that. I think like the way locality guys used to be like, I'm going to be a Peruvian guy. I'm going to be a Suriname guy. I'm going to be a Guyana guy. I'm going to be a North Brazilian Lemke line. I'm going to do all this stuff. Like we don't have the people that do morphs. We don't have that same type of person per se. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. There could be someone I don't know out there that's crushing it. But yeah, you brought up a great point.
Yeah, like I said, there's so many genes, and like, one of the animals that I actually really liked on your page, which I wish I would have stalked your page a week earlier, was your Celtic Hypo Inca VPI. Was there IMG in that? There was no IMG in that, right? Or was that an IMG?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, that's just Celtic and Hypo and Inca. Yep.
So I had a couple customers come by, a couple guys that are ball python guys that want to get into boa constrictors, and they're really looking for some great stuff. And they're at my house, and they're looking at some of the VPI IMG stuff I produced this year. And I took them over to so I'm one of those guys that I do like the Vin Russo route where I'm raising females for like 6 years to get them like 5 pounds, and then I'm breeding them, which is cool unless you're in the rat race and hoping to make new stuff. This is like just long-term stuff. But I had a absolutely dripping Pink Panther Hypo Celtic female VPI in the rack. And I've been raising her for like 4 years. And they came over and they were looking at I think they were looking at an IMG Key West Jungle Aztec VPI male. And I was like, well, maybe this female, which I don't really want to sell. And they ended up committing to the female. Now, here's the problem with that. It was the only Celtic female I had in my entire collection that's visual VPI. All I have is her brother left, and he doesn't have hypo. And I just so happen to have a Motley Inca Het VPI male that's going to be ready this fall. Big mistake. I almost want to sell them my Motley Inca just for them to do the pairing. I love the animals so much.
Yeah.
But I have no Inca stuff, and I need a lot more Inca stuff now.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I spent a solid past decade trying to acquire Key West stuff. I love Key West stuff. Ever since Jeff Ronnie made the first stuff, I've been all in on Key West, everything. I love it. And I kind of wrote off other things. I wrote off Raptor a little bit. I wrote off Inca and Celtic a little bit. But the more it was a turning point. When I saw Kevin Hazley in Europe produce, I think he had a litter of IMG, Jungle, Inca stuff.
Mhm.
And you probably know what I'm talking about. This was 4 or 5 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. I realized like, oh, because my number one thing that bothers me a little bit with Key West is that with hypo and you mix it breaks down the pattern a little bit. But Inca does a great job of holding its pattern with hypo, and it has such a thicker pattern. And when you combo with other stuff, Celtic, IMG, it's nuts. Like it's I think it's what everyone wants, which is that thick ladder tail with vibrant color, and you can replicate it every time. And they get better with age. It's a great morph. I wish that I would have branched out and got more Incas a little bit sooner, but I just didn't know. And it took someone showing me like this is what's possible, and I'm like, oh, I'm sold on it now. Like I have a couple of those. I look forward to. I might produce some Inca stuff this year, but it's a fantastic morph. Like it's great. I don't see any negatives with it.
No, I'm really lacking in Incas. Like, I can count all my Incas on one hand, and that's really shameful. Like, I need more good Inca stuff. And,
Yeah,
I'm like one of these guys that like buying it cheap and making the ingredients, but that might be a project I might have to buy a little ahead in, something that's a little further in the game.
yeah,
Um, you know,
yeah,
I, we're not really young men anymore. I think, you're about a year younger than me. I was an 84 baby. I think I saw you were an 85. I had to do
yeah,
the Wikipedia stocks. I thought we'd talk a little football somewhere in here, but we
yeah.
might just actually, we are going to talk a little football.
What's up?
What you were draft class of 2008. Friedman was 2009. Friedman being a BOA guy, you ever have
Uh-huh.
a relationship with him in the hobby?
No, I haven't. I know he's a big boa guy. I know he bought from a lot of great stuff. I have never sold him anything, but yeah, I did play against him a couple times, and he was a great player, far better than I was. And I think it's great. Any high profile guy that's out there that is a proponent or just loves boas, I think it's great for everyone, man. Like I wish we had more people like that. I should have done a better job myself of promoting stuff while I was playing, but it's difficult. But I wish I maybe someday I can still sell him something.
Well, I don't remember how much Chad Brown promoted himself as a reptile guy when he was a football player. Like, I don't know if he really promoted, didn't promote a lot. I don't remember those really early days because I always remember seeing Robin a lot in those videos.
Uh-huh.
I do know when I talked to Rich Eiley, I believe Rich Eiley mentioned that when I think he sold, I think Rich Eiley sold Chad his first rock python or something like that. Like Chad happened to come down to his place, picked up that animal, and I think later on he probably did pick up some salmon boas from him.
Uh-huh.
But I know Rich Eiley had a story about meeting him back in the day. But no, I mean I do understand the separation. I used to partner up with this guy that played in the NHL, and he really didn't want to disclose his personal life in his professional life, and I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be really honest, I always I kind of purposely kept things separate. Number one thing was it just took an incredible amount of focus just to stay in the NFL and to maintain that job. So I put kind of everything into that, and the boas definitely came second. And then also, a little bit of what we do is different. It's not always understood. I'd mentioned to some people, and I'd get a mixed, weird reaction. Um, and so I just kind of pick and choose what I shared with people, and I never really shared that much. But to be honest, now I'm pretty far past that point. I don't
Yeah.
really care. I love the snakes. I'm all for growing the hobby. I'm all for showing people what's possible. And I think we need a lot more of that because we need the more keepers and the more people that we have passionate about what we do, it's better for everyone. It truly is. Look at where the ball python market is. And I attribute that to people marketing themselves. Like, you guys market yourselves great. You guys do YouTube channels, podcasts, Patreon. You guys are really great about showing everything that's possible. And you guys have grown the market to a incredible amount. And that's where I really want to get boa people to. I want everyone to share what they're doing. And just grow it more, because we need more keepers out there. We need more newer guys. We need the older guys to step up and show more, because it does nothing but benefit everyone. When you have the success, we're all successful. When I have a good litter, we're all successful. That's how I view it. That's how I view it.
100%. And, you know, when we talked the other day, you know, we had a quick chat. I didn't want to keep it too long because I didn't want to spoil the conversation and make us like repeat ourselves, which I always try to avoid that. Justin Colbecca came up in conversation in Canova.
Yeah.
And you had made a comment because, again, you're not a ball guy. I'll be honest. I'm not a ball guy either. You keep on calling me those guys. I'm not those guys, man. I'm a boa guy. Well, I'm an everything guy.
I'm sorry.
I just do ball pythons too, man. I ball pythons are a long relationship. We'll talk about it a little more later, but boas are that one passion in the hobby. Like boas, I can't get away from the boas. But Canova, and the way that Canova has spent the last decade building up a YouTube following and then creating it to where he does a weekly video, even if it's just a 6 to 8 minute video, it's getting a lot of views.
Yeah.
And you know, it's another really thing. Like, I never I've always enjoyed the podcasting thing, and I never really wanted animals behind me in the podcast, because a lot of what I have is going to be not enclosures, but rack systems.
Yeah.
With the hobby now, like when you go through his facility, your facility, all these like brand new Freedom Breeder racks, brand new ARS racks that we have.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when people think about what we're doing, I think they put kind of a redneck notion or redneck idea behind what we are. Like backyard breeders, I guess is the way of putting it.
Yeah.
But when you walk into facilities today and see the equipment we're using and everything else, the hobby's come a long way, and it looks investable is the way of putting it. And right now in boas, I think boas have always been very investable. I just think that we lose people because they have that one bad breeding season.
Yeah.
And man, they never really come back from it.
Yeah. I would love to touch on that for a second. And if I could speak to the people that are listening, like directly, is that boas, I mean nothing negative about ball pythons, but if you had a good chunk of money, I could tell you multiple reasons why I think boas are a great investment, better than ball pythons, and why I would highly urge people to consider breeding boas even over ball pythons. And I hope I don't want to come off, I don't want to step on any toes or be rude about it, but you have far less competition. Your money goes way farther with boas than it does with ball pythons. I admire ball pythons, but I've always felt like the very tip of the pyramid is almost like a little bit. It's if you're not at the top, it's hard to survive in ball pythons. You can be not at the top in boas, and you can have 1 or 2 great litters of quality boas, and you can be a rock star, an absolute rock star in the boa world. It is not the same. It is not the same in ball pythons. They have bigger litters, and I think it's a little bit more enjoyable of an animal. Like for me, an adult female boa is amazing. I love holding them. I love cleaning them. I love everything about them. Ball pythons are a little bit different. Everybody knows these things, but just off of the competition, when you go on Morph Market and you look at ball pythons, there's 8,000 ball pythons right now. Go look right now.
60,000 usually, buddy. It goes from like 40 to 60,000 animals on there all the time.
Yeah, when you go and look at boas, there's 1,400, and it's a different game. Like it's completely different. I've always urged the people I talk to, even ball python people, like just get a couple boas, give it a try. Even if it takes you 4 or 5 years, like you have the rack space, you have the space set aside, try it out. And I think hopefully when they do have litters, they're hooked. But I mean, I'm a boa guy. I'm a huge proponent of boas. I think it's a longer game. it's a little, it's obviously a little bit more difficult to breed. You can't breed as many females back to back. You can't breed as a male to as many females. It is what it is, but I just think it's a shame that boas aren't a little farther along, but it's on me, it's on other people to educate, to get people excited. That's the whole reason why I started posting more on Instagram, because I'm like, I have this stuff. I love it. I'm having the time of my life. Like, why not share some of the stuff and maybe inspire, and maybe a future breeder out there can someday look at my stuff and then have his own vision and outdo me by 100 times over down the road. Like, I would love it. I would love it if I inspire someone to get into boas, to be committed to it, and to breed boas for the rest of their life, and they go on and produce even crazier stuff than I ever even dreamt of. Like, that's the end goal. Like, for me, I don't know. It's different for everyone, but that's just some of my thoughts. I don't know.
No, I'm completely on the same page with you. I've done a lot of different species over the years just because I just have an addictive personality, man. And I look at a rosy boa and I'm like, man, I need rosy boas. And like, it's just like, it doesn't matter what it is. I see it. I'm like, man, I really want to have this. The boas have always been what I've been willing to invest the most in. I've been very scared to overinvest in ball pythons because I don't have the ball python mentality. I don't move fast, and everything moves so fast in ball python mentality.
Yeah, you guys will spend 20-30K on something, and 2 years later it's worth 10% of that. And that's what I didn't want to say it, but there are aspects of the ball python market that are pure pyramid scheme. It is a pure pyramid scheme. I don't care what you have to say. I know what those breeders, the bigger top tier guys, when you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ready to go insane females that you can plug in those males into, it is very, very hard to compete with some of those guys. And I'm not saying no one can do it, because guys have done it. And here's a good example. And I've never talked to this guy. He has no idea that I exist, but Miguel from AEP, in a relatively extremely short time span, because I followed everything that he's done in about 5 years, he has put himself at the very pinnacle of the ball python world. And he's done it by modeling himself after Canova and a few other guys. But you have to spend a good amount of money, and it's just different with boas. You don't have to come in with 100 grand, 200 grand with boas to be a great boa breeder. You don't. You can build a great collection with a fraction of that, and you can immediately contribute to the hobby, as opposed to where I just feel like ball pythons, there's so much more competition. And I hope none of those guys, or if any ball python people are listening, but it's a different game.
Listening. I got a lot of ball python guys listening to us.
It's a different game. I love you guys, but come on over, try some boas out, man. Drop some money. You will be shocked at how you can contribute to the hobby in a very short time span and make very meaningful contributions, color, quality, and morphs that haven't been done before. Because there's still we're really just at the tip of the iceberg with stuff.
We've decided where the next 10 years are going to go, and we're all striving to make the best looking version out over the next 10 years. And like I said, whether it's the VPI Bloods, whether it's the VPI Leopards, whether it's the VPI Black-Eyed Anneries, even the VPI Type 1 Anneries, man. I'm not going to take away from how beautiful those snows are, but we've been doing it long enough now that if there was a way to make a better animal, why wouldn't you do it? And the reality is the better animal is probably going to be in the Black-Eyed Annery stuff moving forward. And the lack of availability, the fact that Type 1 Annery is kind of what we were using back then. Outside of Big Mike for a long time there, man, I never saw any Black-Eyed Annery, anything online. No. And thank God Big Mike stuck it out on all that.
Yeah. There's still, you can go on there right now, Morph Market. There's like maybe a couple. There's a couple. There's just Kevin Hazley overseas was producing some great stuff. But they're incredibly rare still. And people want them. Everybody wants them. And I think it's for good cause. And I will say again, I'm probably going to get crucified from some ball python people. I love all you guys, but I apologize. Those are just my opinions. My opinion is worth nothing. So just take it with a grain of salt. But I would just love to have more people excited and invested in the boas, because like you said, the potential of just the genes that we have and we haven't even discovered yet, I think it's going to be amazing where we're going to be in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Like it's
No.
going to shock people.
And I'm a broken record when I say this. You know, that's the thing that sucks about doing a podcast every week. You tend to say the same thing over and over again. But like, the ball python really is a good way to get in the hobby because there is a lot less room for failure when you're figuring out what the hobby is for you.
Yeah.
And it is still a species that you can make money on and make good money on that you could always reinvest in other things you have more of a passion for.
Yes.
I know a ball python guy that literally just completely flipped his entire collection into a colubrid collection.
Mhm.
Couldn't be happier. I was looking at some Bob Applegate Mountain Kings at his last show. He had some hypo albinos on his table. Beautiful animals. And then, like I mentioned, my friends that came down to see my facility and talk boas, you know, these are guys that have been ball python guys that put a lot into ball pythons and will always be ball python guys.
Yeah.
When they feel that excitement that comes out of some of the boa breeders, the way they talk about their animals, and again, these beautiful animals we're making right now, it's hard not to want to try it out. And
Yeah.
it's, like I said, the one thing I tell them though, don't let that bad year kill you, man. Because
Yeah.
that bad year where you a couple females roll on you for no reason that shouldn't have rolled, or
Yeah.
a couple preemie litters, and we're really banking on it. Never bank on boas. Be happy when you get them. Things do go wrong.
Yeah. Tracy Barker used to tell me that. I had a couple bad years really early, and I was just frustrated because I was just like you. I was putting a lot of money and time and effort into things, and I was just getting crap, like just absolute crap. And I was so frustrated. And she always said this one thing that stuck with me. And she's like, just be thankful for what you got, because at least you got something. And it's a lot harder in the moment of despair and just getting your heart ripped out to really appreciate those words. But it's always stuck with me over the years of like, when I get litters now, they won't always be great. I still breed a lot of head to heads, but I always try to be thankful just for some babies, because somewhere out there is someone that a female got impacted. There is a preemie litter. There's a female that died gravid. There's a female that reabsorbed. There's a female that slugged out. Like, boa breeding, it is not an exact science. A little bit of luck, and it's a little bit more difficult. So when that's another reason of why when people do have successes and make boas, we should all be happy. It's great for everyone because we have new genes out there. Someone had success, and I guarantee even if it was a small amount of success, that success is going to propel them to keep going, which is what we all need.
100%, man. Like I said, I've been kicked in the nuts by boas. I've counted my babies before they were born, and I've learned not to do that. I appreciate whatever I make. I never consider anything a setback anymore.
Yeah.
Like I said, I really enjoy the species. It's very rewarding. And, you know, like I said, the fact that I can't play with the pastel ball python for 20 years and make a better pastel ball python, but I can play with a VPI and put, like you said, pastel lineages in it for the next 20 years and completely keep changing what I'm doing.
That I totally space on that. That's probably my best argument. That's probably my best point about boas, is that your variety and quality and variations of almost every morph, even Aztec, Motley, every single morph has so much variety, is that depending on lineage and depending on what you mix with it, you can create almost anything. And it's simply not the same for ball python people. And that's what it's actually something that I appreciate too, because when I watch Justin's videos or Miguel's videos, and I see when they create something, there's a lot of certainty behind it. One, because they have genetic testing now, but two, because when you add something, you can tell immediately what yellow belly does to something, or what you can tell how it influences a look. But with boas, sometimes there's a little bit of uncertainty because there's so much variation that you might not know exactly what you have. It may look beautiful, but with ball pythons, there's just a lot more uncertainty, which I think there's not as much ability. I mean, like your pick a litter. If you're going to have a Wookiee, GHI, lesser, red stripe, yellow belly, clown, whatever, that's what it's going to look like. Like the first variation, 10 years down the road, when people are still making them, that's what it's going to look like. Like with boas, it is not the same. You can improve upon it dramatically, which is what we see a lot of guys doing great work with. Yourself, Thomas has been doing this forever, like just making better and better VPI snows and red rums. Like it's it's nuts. There's really no, I don't know if there's a limit to it, man. Like there might not be. So that's another great argument. Like, yeah, I agree. I didn't even think about that.
No, too, like, I think of like little pivotal moments in the hobby where it kind of changed the mindset of like where people were taking breeding projects. And like, Tony Antonucci is a good buddy of mine. I've always liked Tony. He bought one of his first boas for me back in the day. We play hockey together every once in a while. Great guy.
Nice.
But like, I remember when he made the first Aztec VPI IMG combos.
Mm-hmm.
And like in that very moment, that really changed the whole idea of what to do with IMG. And still to this day, that is still one of my favorite combos that have come out of that project.
Yeah, I know exactly the bow you're talking about. I know exactly the bow you're talking about. And that, yeah, people have these litters that are like revolutionary, like aha moments of like, oh, let me tell you a funny story. I won't even say any names. One of my best friends, when IMGs first really started to come out, we paid an exorbitant amount of money to get IMG's double head VPI snow.
Oh.
And, or they might have just been IMG's head. No, they were double head VPI snow. He had his for a little bit, and as they started to turn black, he was like, I don't know about this. He was like, I just don't think it's gonna be much. He's like, and he sold it. He sold this. He had one from the first litter. And I mean, fast forward to where we are now today. But initially, when you saw a VPI, you just thought, what is the, or an IMG, I'm sorry, what's the VPI snow version? It's just gonna be a black snake, right? Wrong. It's one of the most awesome things ever, especially with hypo mixed in. It's everybody wants one, but without seeing it and staying like working towards that of which you don't know, you just didn't know. And I don't know if that makes sense, but you have to make some of this stuff and flush it out in order to put the work in to see like what does it really look like. And oftentimes it's even better, I think, than we really realize like it's gonna be, and there's still a lot more to come. I don't know if I'm explaining that right. Man.
No, you are, and it's kind of a dumb thing. I say this all the time, but it takes as long to develop an ugly snake as it does a pretty snake. Like you just don't know until you know, and you can't not give certain things a shot. And rewinding a little bit, I keep on bringing up the Phantom, and the reason I bring up the Phantom like probably 10 times in this podcast, the Phantom might not have relevance for a whole decade still because people that are already on the VPI train are not necessarily going to want to jump to a new T positive.
Yeah.
But in 10 years, it could be like, well, now I want these darker, richer colors. I've done this VPI thing. And watch Golem and Caramel Black-eyed Aneries be the most expensive animal on the market at that point if there's a lack of availability.
Even sharps now. So that's a great, you're exactly right. As more of these people have these blue line sharps and all these sharps that look like pure red magma, like down the road, that should, I could see sharps blowing up again, because back in the day, sharps used to be king even over calls. And for whatever reason, they're just, I mean, they maybe dropped a little bit, but I mean, there's some insane sharps projects out there right now. And very few people work with sharps, like not enough. There's a few guys doing great work, but yeah, dude, that comboed with the Phantom stuff, I could see blowing up, and time will tell. But I fully believe what you're saying. It'll be cool to see.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to put my sharp back into Boehm and Carmel in a decade after spending 3 decades trying to get it out of the project. Like I said, I really, because I even remember me back in the day, and I think this was like around 2006 we figured all this out. But I had sharp female I was raising up, and when I saw the paradigms and the paraglows, I was like, there's the poor man VPI for me. I just got to go out and get this het Boehm and Carmel nobody wants, breed it to my sharp, and I am in the game.
Yeah.
And like I said, it kind of hurt the project.
Yeah. Yeah, that really was a unique time, because I remember seeing them too. And I'm to this day really good friends with Mike. And I remember being like, that is such a unique, crazy way. Because I'm trying to think, we don't really have, is there any other gene that works like that between the sharp and the BWC and
Talking
boa?
about allelic traits, or how do you mean? Like, nothing in recessives. Of course, we have other allelics going on. Of course, Motley, Hypo. So what? It'd be Motley, Hypo, Celtic, or all in the same allele.
I'm talking about they create that brand new, like that brand new look that when we were back in the day and everyone saw paradigms and paragolds for the first time and they're like, well, I have sharp stuff. All I need is a BWC. Like
Yeah.
I remember being like, this is insane. Like it was different. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, you kind of were right. It was like a cheat code to make VPIs.
Yeah.
Like,
Poor
yeah,
man's
you're right.
VPI is the way I like to put it. Yeah,
Yeah.
the other way to get them, because back then VPIs were still like $10,000 when Paradigm stuff
Yep.
was coming out.
Yep.
And
100%.
yeah, it was more obtainable to find something close to it if you didn't have $10,000 to spend.
Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy times, man. It's crazy how far we've come because yeah, those were the VPIs were huge. There were people paying more than that too. Some of
Yeah.
Tracy's original double dose Pink Panther stuff was selling for a lot. And I just that's why I reached out to some of these guys and just wanted to I just wanted to see some of the snakes. Like Tony Palmasith, Green Ant, that everyone knows. Like when I went and visited him for the first time in 2009, it was the first time I'd ever seen VPIs, and especially let alone Pink Panthers. And I remember seeing them like, oh my God, like that's what it is. Like it, it's hard to put into words, but they were so much nicer than anything that I'd seen previously that it was like, this is crazy. Like this is crazy. This is how nice boas can be. And that from there, it just fueled me to want to keep going and obviously do more. And it's nuts. I don't know. I keep going back to the past, but yeah, we are so
Past is
lucky.
everything, buddy. I love the past. I like people who know the past, who nerded out the same way I did, so we can have similar stories. You remember what I'm even talking about?
Yeah.
So the Marin project, man. Like I said, I had my one Marin pairing this year. It was a hypo het Marin to a VPI jungle that was supposed to be Marin, but I always had my doubts.
Yeah.
Smaller litter. I'll send you some pictures after the podcast. It's not exactly groundbreaking. Like I said, I got hypo, jungle, and Marin all in the mix.
Yeah.
But man, the Junglo Marin male that is in there, really nice looking. It had what I would is that typical Marin pattern, I guess the way putting it is.
With that vibrant tail.
Yes,
Oh.
the tail's popping, man. I'll be honest, there's even just a PP, because I had PP on both sides also. There's even this like perfect little Pink Panther VPI with the best Widow's Peaks you've ever seen and just dripping with color after just like a shed or two.
Yeah.
Now that, you know, I'm not going to say I'm 10 years behind on that project also, but like, you know, that project really is at a standstill because we really can't ID these Marins the way we thought we could because we keep on mixing so many other pastels into it that they're not really, I don't know for sure.
Yeah. So I was one of the first people that got into that. I will say back in the day from Gray Russian, when Gray Russian had those and he first started, when he got them from overseas and he was reproducing them, I got a pair. And that was my main issue that I really didn't like is that I did a couple breedings with Hypo Jungle and you'd get this litter of the most wild looking Marin Hypo Jungles. But twice I got fooled the same way you got fooled back in 2011 or 12. And yeah, I did to a customer and for myself stuff that I thought was Marin that was not. And it's extremely difficult to sell something that you can't properly let ID. And it's also extremely desirable to get people to buy into something, a project that's so difficult. And it really is something that I wish that needs to be almost line bred, like you got to do some type of line breeding to preserve the look of it because the original look was shocking and supers are shocking. But when you start to mix it, it diluted it so much that it's just hard to ID. So you're selling, you essentially have to sell them all as POS Marins or you just have to prove them out yourself. So I didn't really know how to approach a project. So it was my own fault. I sold what I had and kind of washed my hands of it. I wish I wouldn't have because now I see guys like John Manser, Sergio Hernandez, a few other people that are producing some of these Marin VPI stuff now, and it's shocking. Like they're really nice, but it's still kind of can be hard to ID unless you get a clear cut one that like that's one. So I don't know. You'd know better than me at this point, but that was my issue.
I do and I don't. You know, living in the Carolinas. What was man, what was his website? Was it allboas.com or
Yep.
allboas.com? That was another one I used to obsess over too and spend a lot of time on just because the Marin project was on there.
And his
It
pictures
was
were
a really good
insane.
website, man. Really clean, really well put together.
Everything he had was amazing. He had, I think he had EBV pastels, Summit pastels. He had Marin stuff. Like his pastel game was so, he was so meticulous with his breedings and his quality too, that I think he was the perfect person for that project. And I used to, him and Salmon Boa were stuff I used to look at every day, every
Yeah.
single day. His pictures were top notch. His quality was top notch. The way he showed his breedings and his the parents and stuff was always amazing. I had a lot of respect for Gray Russian. Wish he was
Me
still
too.
doing it.
Yeah, no, always loved his stuff. And I was in the Carolinas when he was doing a lot of his stuff too. So it made me want to pay even more attention to him. Now I never got to speak with him. It's not that I was a shy dude early on, but like I didn't know what I had to bring to the conversation back then. So I just felt bad bothering these old guys. And like, I remember the first time I called Jeff Ronnie and he picked up the phone and he talked to me for like an hour. I was
Yeah.
like, that was nice. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
really expect that because I was really nobody in my eyes. I didn't think anybody would want to give me the time of day in a conversation. But, the cool thing now, and I keep talking about it, now 20 years later, I'm calling all these guys I never talked to 20 years ago, and I'm bringing them on the podcast, and I'm having these great conversations. So maybe it's good I saved them, but I pushed out on a lot of people talking back in the day. Even Tracy, man, the first time I called Tracy and she actually answered the phone, oh man, that made me so happy.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that as well. I remember being like, I'm talking to like a founding father of not only boas but ball pythons and bloods. Like, dude, Tracy, how kind and generous of her to give any of us her time, considering how much her collection and also their writing and stuff. Like those people are so special. And the same with Jeff. Like I used to talk to Jeff and call him on the phone. I should always think like, this is amazing. This guy has no reason to talk to me. I'm an absolute nobody, but I can tell you those conversations and being able to talk to those people inspired me to want to be like them. And I have tried to pay it forward, I feel like, and still reach out to people and talk to other people nowadays, because just sharing and talking boas like me and you were doing, I think goes a really long way as far as just like exciting people about the hobby. Because you never know, maybe that one random person that you talk to or that one random podcast that you do and that little thing you talk about just inspires someone someday to really get after it. Like,
No,
it's exactly what you're doing.
You feed off other people's energy, and I genuinely believe that. And like I said, when you talk to boa guys, just because it's such a labor of love sometimes when things go wrong, there's such a passion in their voice when they're telling you about when things are going right.
Yeah.
It's hard not to feed off that, man.
Yeah. It's when you win, we all win. And just to see something new is amazing. Like all the stuff that Tracy was showing me, or pictures or her blog, like we talked about, like she would just post something on her blog and it would just be like, I gotta have this. I gotta be a part of this. It drew interest, and she would write stuff, beautifully written articles explaining stuff. That's something I don't do a good enough job, is explaining stuff or educating people, because it's time consuming. It's a little bit labor of love, but we need a little bit more of that in boas too. Because like I said, there's still a lot of unknown about specific morphs, specific lineages stuff. And God bless her for doing all that work way back in the day when really nobody was.
No, literally nobody was. That's one of my biggest problems in the hobby is I don't really put myself out. The podcast, I put myself out there like crazy, man. I'll talk about anything. I'll talk about personal stuff, but like when it comes to posting online, like it's kind of a weird thing to bring up, but like about 7-8 years ago, my buddy Ben Rennick passed away, and when he passed away, I got the call like the next morning that he died, and then I moved to Missouri to take care of his collection moving forward. And when I moved there and started living in the woods by myself and didn't really talk to anybody, it really took me out of like the trend of actually posting online. And man, it's been 8 years and I still have not got back into like, his Instagram page. So I started using his Instagram page to keep the animals going, keep posting.
Mm-hmm.
I do 3 posts a day. It got up to like 40,000 followers. And then I got hacked and I lost it all. That was the last time I did social media, man. It was just so defeating to watch. I literally watched this guy delete every image on it, one after another. I'm taking screenshots, trying to get
Really?
whatever I could, and that was it, man. I was done with social media.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely the negative aspect of it. That's really unfortunate. And
Yeah.
I know also how beloved Ben Rennick was to a lot of people. So yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking. Even me as I knew about all that, and that's yeah, it's tough. I had a every now and then people pass away, and you realize how much they contributed to the hobby. Kind of everyone knows what they are when they're around, but even when they're gone, they're like, damn, like that person brought a lot to the table, like a lot. There's a couple boa people I feel the same way about, and I probably didn't have nearly as close a relationship as you did with Ben. But yeah, social media can be a good tool, but it's also yeah, that's a definitely a negative aspect.
Yeah,
Huh.
got to get better, man. Like I said, I still have this like living in the woods mentality, but like I mentioned I have my new shop in town, so
Uh-huh.
like I'm inviting breeders over. They're coming in and like they're walking in and like I work with northern blue tongue skinks. I've always loved them. It's that one lizard that does it for me. And
Uh-huh.
you walk in my shop and the first thing you see is a wall of like 80 of them. And my
Uh-huh.
buddy's all like, "How the fuck do you have this many of these things? Like I didn't even know you really even had any." I was like, "Oh yeah, I've been collecting them for 12 years." I
Yeah.
just never talk about them. I never post them. And
Yeah.
like the boas, especially, like I think these conversations really do go a long way. Listen to people kind of cut it up and talk about the projects. Like, as complex as boas are, it's not like you have to remember 300 base genes like in ball
Yeah.
pythons, and then
Yeah.
6,500 nicknames when you start putting them together. You got to
Yeah.
remember, like, you brought up the EVBs.
Yeah.
Man, I had an EVB jungle that was amazing. He was crisp. He was perfect in every way.
Mhm.
And then I sold him.
Mhm.
Wish I never got rid of him.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I had a Hypo Summit Pastel
Hmm.
jungle, Hypo Summit Jungle Pastel, and I still have the images. She had like this perfect little square pattern down her back. And
Hmm.
I bred my lipstick albino that I bought from Tom Burke, and that was one of my other really big investments early on. And I didn't hold back anything.
Yeah.
And there's a
Because
couple breeders in
everybody
the
wanted
industry
them.
that still have it.
Everybody wanted them.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
You.
that's the thing. Everybody wanted them.
Yeah. You got the? Did you get the summit from Brandon White?
Man, here's the sad thing. I don't remember exactly who I bought it from.
Yeah.
Like, I just remember one day I had it. It may have been I went on Fauna. I might have went on King Snake. That's one of my like biggest things that I should be a lot better at in the hobby. I may not remember your name, but if you tell me one animal you made one time, I'll tell you the position the animal was in the picture. I will tell you
Yes.
everything, but I won't always
Yes.
remember. Like with you, man, and hopefully I'm not mixing you up. Chunku Pastel Key West stuff early on was your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful
Oh yeah.
animal.
That's another thing. You talk about kicking yourself. When I was making some of those in 2011, 12, that same thing. I didn't hold any of them back. I ended up selling. I held on to a couple, but I ended up selling them all, and I regret it to this day because they were phenomenal. They were really good. I was very fortunate to get one of the best original males that Jeff made, and he was a great breeder. I produced some stuff, and dude, I still don't make I still don't make Key West look that good. Like
No,
I don't. Some of that purples and pinks on the side with that connected pattern it was special, man. And now hindsight's 2020, but that is something as I get a little bit older that I have a lot of admiration for Jeff is that Jeff will hoard a lot. I mean, I mean it in a good way, but Jeff will hoard a lot of great animals because I realize like some of these animals are more special than you realize. Like it may be a couple more years before you're able to produce any, and they may not look like this specific line looks of morphs. So I do a better job of trying to hold on to a few more animals now when I make them because I'm like, maybe I won't do this breeding again. Maybe I won't be able to replicate this look. And they're a little bit more special to me as opposed to back in the day when I made something and people wanted them. I'd be like, well, okay.
yeah,
I just didn't have as much discipline, but now I have a greater appreciation for some of the stuff I do produce, and it means a lot more to me. It's more special. So
yeah. It's what is it? You might know the name Jay Erickson, Georgia guy. Does a little this and that. I'll send you some good pictures from him. But the reason I bring him up is he did buy some of that Lipstick Summit Jungle Het Call stuff from me. And when you go to his table today, you can see that original mom and all his babies. Like, it just has that defined look. Like, I always talk about it. Like, I can go online and look at somebody's pastels, and I know whose they are. You could have somebody else's business name on there. I'll look at that hypo, and I'll be like, that's this guy's hypo lineage. You know what I mean?
That is such a credit to, and that's another thing we should give so many more props to breeders, is that you can show me a lipstick sunglow and I'll say that's from Tom Burke's original founding lineage. You can show me a pastel dream monster tail and that is from Jeff Ronnie. You can show me pink panthers and I can show that is exactly from Tracy Barker. Red rums. We all know these things, and those are all credit to the people that did the work, because those genes are such great quality that it's, without some of these people doing the stuff, like you're not going to have them. Like Jeff Ronnie's been making badass monster tails for like forever. And you know what a monster tail looks like. You know what a pastel green monster tail looks like. Like they're very easily recognizable. And I remember, like you said, if you showed me a picture, I remember some of Tom Burke's original lipstick sunglows. I just used to stare at them all day. Like I remember exactly what they look like, exactly how they look like. Or he'd go to a show and there'd be pictures and just be like, you could ID that snake anywhere. A blind person could.
Yeah. And I remember like one of those original animals he had on his website back in the day of that original like monster tail, or maybe it was like the first hypo he made, but that pattern was just bold, man. Like there was nothing like it.
The gigantic orange female that was in the grass.
Yep.
Yep.
So I accidentally made Aztec Jungle Super Hypo Ghost Labyrinth this year. Yeah. Jungle Aztec Super Hypo Labyrinth Ghost.
Ooh.
Complete by chance. I literally made some Hypo Labyrinths a few years ago just to make them. Held back like 3 males because I think they are a beautiful. I think they're a jungle on steroids, man. You know they're always going to look good. You never get a bad looking labyrinth pattern.
Yeah.
Nothing low expression.
Real quick, or remind me, I have something to say about labyrinths after this, but go ahead. I'd love to hear this.
Oh no. So I produced this animal and he's like smoky and gray. And when I first made it, I feel almost ashamed of myself. I like ran to the shop as I was passing by. I went in there. She had the litter. I pulled them all out. I kind of looked. I was like, oh, the little paradoxy looking animal in here. Threw them all in the bin. Left. Took a few pictures. Sent them to a couple friends that they're driving. And they're like, oh, you made aneries. And I was like, did I make aneries? And I look on the photos. And that like smoky gray one I thought was like some kind of weird like crystal paradoxing thing when it first was in the goo. The males I produced in-house, no anery in the lineage. The mom I used was like a high-tech female that I thought was Het VPI, but like it came from a guy and it was always mislabeled. And I happened to make aneries. But the reason I bring that animal up, the moment that thing shed, I looked at it, it reminded me of the Mystico boas that he used to post on his page. And that's another thing. He did like Pearlescence and Mysticos, both around the same time. I don't even know if he has any animals from those lineages anymore.
Yeah, I guarantee you 90% of the people that's listening right now don't even remember that, because that's like early 2000s and late 90s. Like I remember he used to have them all on his website, and them Pearlescents they were like a poor man's labyrinth. You talk about some of Jeff's original breedings between those. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He had something else. Man, my memory's going bad, but I know exactly what you're talking about. That's such a cool surprise, dude. That's freaking. You'll have to send me some pictures because I think I missed that, dude. That's awesome.
I'll send it to you. And I know they've been made in other places. I saw some of the stuff you had on your site, but also made just it looks like it's probably Jungle Aztec Labyrinth Anery female in there. She's crisp, man. The pattern is freaking perfect. Might not be jungle. I'll send you pictures. Give me your opinion. She looks really, really good. I might hold her back. I don't really know why to hold her back yet, but I think I might hold her back.
Just because you can. That's great. I was surprised how well Aztec holds up to Labyrinth, because pretty much a lot of other stuff, it breaks down or completely changes the look of snake. But like Labyrinth Aztecs look like they look like really awesome, crazy, almost super Aztec-y looking boas. Like I've only made a few, but I've been really happy with how that combo interacts. I hope I make more. But so you're saying jungles, like jungles have been popular forever. I mean, how long has jungles been around since Pete's been making them? Probably early 90s?
The
Early,
jungles? Yeah,
yeah.
they came in from Sweden originally. There was the
Mhm.
Swedish line jungle. Pete got them in, worked with them, and then they started making their way around the industry. There's this guy in North Carolina. I think his company name was killerjungles.com.
Uh-huh.
But his business card is just like perfectly striped jungles, and his table
Hmm.
looks great. He was in the Raleigh area. He might have, I don't know where he got his stuff from. He's completely gone now. I don't even think he exists anymore. This was like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely sometime around, I think, 92, 93. I should know this, but my point of saying is that to this day, jungles are still a wildly popular morph. Everybody has them. Everybody wants them. They combo great with everything. And like you mentioned earlier, labyrinths are just a super form of a jungle. It's a even better, crazier, more powerful, reproducible look of what jungles are. So there's been this sentiment going around lately for maybe the last couple of years of how people feel about labyrinths and labyrinths. There are too many. They're done. Nobody wants them. Blah blah blah. Well, the fact of the matter is that everybody wants them. The
Yeah.
fact of the matter is that they're going to be around forever, and they're here to stay, and for good reason. They are a beautiful example, and as you get into supers, I think for this reason that as more and more people get crystals and realize that they're viable, which there's still some people that don't realize that super or crystals are super labyrinths and that they are viable. I think it's perhaps one of the best morphs we've ever had. And that also, I think we're at the tip of the iceberg too, as far as utilizing it and finding out all the different avenues of stuff we can do with it. So that's my 2 cents. I want to throw it in there because people are always going to have labyrinths. They're always going to have some value as we transition to making more combos with stuff and seeing everything IMGs, bloods, leopards, everything. I just think it's going to be great. So it always rubs me a little bit a wrong way the wrong way because I compare it to jungle. Like there's a time when people said jungles are done. There's too many. The prices dropped. They tried to discredit them. Jungles
Yeah.
are still around. Everybody has jungles. If you post a great jungle today, you can still sell a great jungle. It may not be for the tons of money that you bought in initially or what you value it at, but there's still a place for it. And I think labyrinths are the same thing. There's a place for it. There will always be a place for it. It's going to do nothing but continue to make the hobby better. And it's really just getting started. And
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
really think that's opinion. I think that's a fact.
yeah. Oh no, I couldn't agree with you more. And I got a few things I'll say about that. So first off, a really nice jungle snow glow, whether it's orange chasm or not, that's still a $2,000+ animal. And you throw IMG in there, and now we're up into the 35 to 4,500 range
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
So
Perfect point.
yeah, it's just about what you do with it. And I think that's kind of where Labyrinth is now. I had this conversation and, like you said, someone came and were like, man, the price is dropping on this too fast. It's this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, man, I remember the first year he made them for sale, they were 17.5. The
Yep.
next year, if you wanted one, they were 12.5. And that's actually when I had a chance to buy it with a partner of mine.
Yep.
It dropped 30% the first year from 1 to 2. If you literally look at that project last decade, it's almost consistently dropped 30% every year perfectly.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about a steady decline for a co-dominant project? There it
Yeah.
is, man. Like, and
It's to a T. You're absolutely right, to a T. It's a mathematical kind of, it's not a drop. It's naturally doing it's a natural market correction of what you have. It's a co-dominant morph.
Yep.
It has a super, but yeah, these people losing their minds now because you can buy a labyrinth for $1,000. Like, what did you think? Because you bought one for a gigantic amount of money 5 years ago, there's a lot more of them out there. And the project's been around for quite some time now. Like it's following its natural progression. Now it's upon you to take it and make something better with it and make something new and improve upon it. But yeah, like And how awesome is it that all the people in the hobby that couldn't afford it when it was 17.5, 12.5, 7,500, 5K. Now all these people can have a great, awesome morph for a much more affordable price.
Yeah.
And I think that's great too. So I don't know. I just get so down when people say like, "Well, that's over." Like, really? Have you actually thought about it? Like, no. And I have the same thing about um like I have a lot of thoughts about all that stuff. We don't need to get into it, but
We
that's
can
I just
jump
think
around, man. Well,
it's
let's prop up some lavender a little, or not lavender. I'm sorry, labyrinth. Man, I love the way that IMG plays with labyrinth. It doesn't take over, creates a nice contrast in the pattern, looks great as an adult. You don't have a
yeah,
solid black snake.
yeah,
Very surprised it worked out that way, but I love it.
yeah. The it holds back the IMG quite a bit. Like I've been really blown away. I have two adult female IMG Anery labyrinths, and they are completely silver and black snakes. The IMG didn't black everything out. Like I stare at them almost every day, and I'm pretty blown away by how powerful the labyrinth gene is to hold back the IMG without hypo, and then for it to have that look. Like it is a great morph. If you don't have an IMG Anery Labyrinth, just that specific combo, let alone Snow Glow, but that is a transcendent combo. I view things as certain things like Jungle Montleys. That's a transcendent combo. Um, a couple other things, but I just think the way it works together is so perfect that yeah, when people say stuff about labyrinths like, look at this. Do you have one of these? Because I only have two, and I wish I had 20 of them. And I'm gonna try to make some more. So, and people want them. So, yeah, I mean, eh, yeah, there's so many combos that are left to be done, dude. I mean, a blood. Has anyone made a blood leopard labyrinth? That might look pretty good.
Probably not. I've been kind of on the fence about the labyrinth leopard stuff. Like, I see the pattern showing through, and leopard is just so strong that
Yeah.
it really is going to knock everything around. It's cool you can see it, but when you start getting into like the habaneros and things like that, I think the
Uh-huh.
labyrinth's going to be a difficult one.
It might be, yeah. I It might be good for boosting the color, which I think the labyrinth does
Yes.
a lot. But the pattern, maybe or maybe not. Maybe it won't show up, but I'm I'm banking on it. But it may not. Look, I've had some of these friends or acquaintances where I have this vision with a project, and I've had a couple people straight up tell me they think it's almost worthless. And I said, well, I used to get a little bit offended. I used to hold in the back of my mind, but as a little bit of time goes on, I kind of am a little bit more gracious because I'm like, well, honestly, I don't know. I have a dream in my mind that how I envision it, but it may not be the best thing ever. But I'll try to see what it looks like, and maybe it looks good, maybe it doesn't. But I wish more people kind of had that viewpoint of like, let's go and do something crazy and see how it comes out because it may be awesome, it may not be, and I'm
No.
fully
Well,
capable of saying that, hey, this just doesn't look that good, but let's try.
yeah, no, I mean, there's only so many pattern mutations I've seen even put into Labyrinth, or no, I'm sorry, not Labyrinth, Leopard at this point.
Yeah,
And you're not going to be able to tell what a jungle leopard is. Like, I
yeah,
just don't see there in any way of seeing that. Motley's too much. It makes too dark of an animal. Yes, you could
yeah,
bring it back a little, but, it kind
yeah.
of takes you one direction. And, man, I don't know if I've even. Arabesque, has that been. I feel like I've seen some arabesque. No? Maybe not.
Arabesque leopards or
I
are
thought maybe I saw arabesque leopard at one point, but I could be wrong.
Man, I don't know if I have, but speak of the devil, a fantastic codom, or actually just a fantastic morph in general that's almost nobody works with. Square tail, arabesque. Like, dude, give me an arabesque jungle. Oh my god, they're incredible, but they're just something that hasn't really continued or caught on over the years that I wish there was more of. But I mean, an arabesque labyrinth would be cool. I don't know if anyone's made one of those. That's actually a
You know, I'm not
good
100%
idea.
sure, and I'll be honest, I'm down to just a couple arabesque females. I remember growing up in the hobby, everybody always say they were bad breeders, but I also heard that about BPI females. We all know that's not
Yeah,
the case anymore.
yeah.
Um,
That used to be
rumors may go.
the huge thought process. I remember that those days, like, oh, you should get heads. You don't want to get visuals. Like, oh, okay.
So I bred one of the hypo labyrinths or a hypo labyrinth jungle to one of my Arabesque girls this year, just because, you know, when you made the comment about how the price of labyrinths have come down, they're going to be more obtainable for a lot of people. That was kind of my mindset when I held back like 3 hypo males, you know, that weren't supposed to be het for anything.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd put them through a couple things to try to make some really unique looking labyrinths for my table. For that, like, you know, I don't know where the price is going to be, so I'm not going to say it's priced out loud, but like, you know, with the anticipation with the price to be a little bit lower to where more people could afford it.
Yeah.
And the litter was born dead. But let me just tell you something, man. The hypo leopard or the hypo labyrinth arabesque was incredible. But here I got one rule in boas. I don't take pictures of dead snakes. So I didn't take a picture of the litter. I just didn't have it in me. It was too heartbreaking. I'll do the pairing again this year.
Yeah.
But
I would have loved to see those, man.
I just, it's one thing I've always done in boas is, man, like, especially when I'm trying to do, what if those were the first ones ever made and all I could show you was a dead snake? Like, kind of tragic. But I understand what you're saying. Let me just, trust me when I say they were nice. Trust me, I'll do it again this year. But, yeah, I just didn't take a picture. But it looked good. It looked really good.
Yeah, I think that's very commendable of you. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. But, yeah, I'll take your word for it because, yeah, I look at the way Arab jungles are. I've always loved Arab jungles, especially when they get a lot of striping in there. So what's a labyrinth going to do? Well, most labyrinths are very aberrant and striping, and they have even better colors. So, yeah, your base first crack at a hypo Arab labyrinth, probably, yeah, I have no doubt it would look. I literally never thought of that.
Yeah, well, I had a few ladies laying around, and the funny thing is they were supposed to be double head called square tail. You know, square tail's another one that I've kind of always like really been all over the place on because, again, going back to the Rich Isle breeding post, I remember one time I thought he put 2 of the nicest looking square tails together in a pairing, and I remember the litter not looking square tail, and I was very confused by that, and I still to this day wonder how that gene works.
I have no clue because I can tell you what I've seen. People think it's recessive. I've seen Buddy breed a square tail to a hypo jungle and make hypo jungle square tails.
Yeah.
And there was no way that the mom was any square tail lineage. I've seen it work like a codon, and I've also seen it work as recessive. And then I'm trying to remember the breeder, but I've also seen it work where you breed 2 square tails together, and it's just not at all what you expected. Like they should all be extra boosted color, boosted pattern, whole litter of square tails, and you're mostly normals, very few square tails. So that is a gene that I wish we did understand more and more people worked with, because the ones that are out there are amazing, especially with jungle, and they get better with age, and there's such a unique look that we don't really have much out there that looks exactly like that it could be great. But yeah, man, I would love to see more.
Like you said, I would love to see more. If I understood it more, I'd probably want to work with it more. I always have stuff laying around that's marked hets. I'm never getting the outcomes I think I should be getting. I'm never making a high visual. Like I said, that's one that I could see coming back in a few years. And there's a couple guys that did stick it out with that project.
There are.
When I was talking, this is another history deal. When we had Rich Eiley on, I brought up the cherry pastel. Cherry stuff. And he mentioned that the original square tails came from his cherries.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. And you remember Alex in North Carolina? He had a lot of the cherry stuff going on about a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I ended up buying his entire collection off from him years ago.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was only about 5 or 6 visuals. Really awesome animals. I'll send you some pictures when we get done. I made a couple in-house.
Yeah, he was making cherry jungles that were just like gnarly. I remember some of those, like they were on the par with any red rum jungle you would see. They were nuts.
Very special animals, but kind of lost in time now. Cherry is hard to find, like pure cherries that haven't been like put into a lot of other things, because that's another pushback I have where I try to explain to people. Certain pastel lineages with pastel lineages don't make a brighter animal. Sometimes almost they cancel each other out, I feel.
Yeah. It's tough because we all work in BCI. We all love morphs. We love mixing stuff, but probably our greatest strength is probably also one of our greatest weaknesses is that we don't take the time to really think some of these things through, or maybe just be like, hey, you know what? I am just going to line breed this animal. I am just going to take time to preserve the original look of how it's meant to be. So myself included, I have not done a good job of that at all. So yeah, I mean, the cherries, your original EBV pastels, your Summit pastels, those are, I mean, there's still a lot of great people doing Summit pastel work, but lipstick, I mean, those are all things that are, yeah, they've all just gotten a little bit diluted over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, another one I love to bring up too is the Ferrari.
Oh, man.
Because I was living in North Carolina, and Chris Canada Smith, of course, started the Ferrari stuff.
Big time.
And he was like one of the first breeders I actually went to his house to look at a couple things. We did a trade deal, but I remember he showed up. I think it was the first ever Repticon in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I look across the room, and we're talking, I'm a good like 50, 60 yards from him, and I just see him holding his hand out, and I just see this bright pink boa from the other side of the building. I go running over, and that original animal ended up changing hands, I think, a couple times after he was done with it when he got out of the hobby. But like, that was one I told him, if you ever get rid of this, I need to have it. And he offered it to me years later, but he wanted me to pay for it. But I had to wait like 6 months to get it because he wanted to breed it again. Yeah. And I want to say Autumn might have got that from him.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
That was another animal that was just like one of these things I saw along the way. And, another nerdy story. So the way they started the name for Ferrari is he went and bought a group of boas from a guy. They go back to a hotel room. It's him and a buddy. And he's got them all out on the bed. And his buddy's all like, that's a BMW. That's a BMW. That's a Ferrari. And that's stuck with the name, man. So really love that about it. But
that's a cool story. I did not know. You're blowing my mind. I did not know that either.
Yeah, that was lucky place at the right place at the right time. Just happened to talk to Chris Canada Smith. He came and saw me at a show one time, and I think I had like a het blood on my table that he wanted. And it was just a male het blood. So I went to his house to try to figure out something we could barter on that animal. And again, this is probably 2006, 2007, I want to say. But no, that was awesome, man. And I talk about it too. Like my first breeding was almost like an accident. I had two. Man, I'm gonna remember the invoice in a second. I don't think they were Rich Alley animals. They might have been Kyle Frost, but I picked up a couple Hypos Pas Het for albino for my lipstick that I bought back in like 2004 or 5. And I raised these 3 animals up. One died on me before I even got to breeding. And then the one breeding season, I had 2 like 5-foot vision cages in my bedroom next to my bed so I could stare at them all the time. And I had the lipstick albino with the one, and I had the het blood with the other because I wanted to make Pas hets I was going to hold back to maybe make a albino blood someday. The het blood wouldn't breed the female for shit. The other male was breeding his female nonstop. 1 or 2 nights, I took that lipstick out. I put it down with the other female with that male just to try to get that male going, create a little competition. Took him out after 2 nights. I missed everything. Everything's still eating. I got no babies. I was keeping everything on corrugated cardboard back then, just like Rich. I go in there to feed one night after I get home from work, and on the female that had the lipstick in there for like 2 nights, there was just a sunglow on top of the corrugated cardboard, a baby. And I'm like, oh my God. And I flipped that cardboard over, and there's just a big fucking pool of babies. And
this has been 2006, 7?
I think it was like 2006. I think the first year I bred was like, it had to be like 2006. I think it was my first year I made babies.
Bro, that's a nutty first litter. Because I remember I bought in 2005 or 6, I bought just a hypo het sunglow for like, I mean, just hets were like $500 to $1,000. They were still pretty expensive.
So I took that litter, did a show, made like $4,500, I think, at the show, which to me was like, I was working for like $10 or $12 an hour in a factory. Yeah. And then I go and sit behind a table for 2 days, and I come home with $4,000 in my pocket. So, of course, at that point, I had to buy a motley het albino male the next day for like $4,000.
You had to.
Had to. I don't know if it was IBD, but at about a year and a half of age, I went in there one day and he was stargazing. And that
Oh,
was it. I had to
yeah,
I knew about I heard all the horror stories.
yeah,
I didn't really know what was happening with it. I didn't have a big collection. I kind of panicked and it just, so
yeah,
all my first profit was put into one animal and I
yeah,
ended up never even getting to breeding season with that animal.
yeah. That's another thing. We're so fortunate nowadays to have testing. Like back in the day, it was kind of like no one really knew. I feel like, at least I didn't. Maybe I was just ignorant to it or uneducated. But we're so fortunate to have cheap, readily available testing nowadays. And I feel like a lot of breeders have done a lot of good work with all that stuff. But dude, that's your first litter story is that's pretty good because mine was I had bought a couple. Remember how people used to advertise on Craigslist, like snakes
Of
on
course.
Craigslist? I
Yeah.
bought an adult pair from a guy in LA that he had been communally breeding like a hypo, this really colorful but dark kind of hypo with female with a couple males and just been keeping together. Had no clue if they're gravid, and I went and bought them from him. And long story short, but like a month later, like they're the female's just destroying her cage, and I kind of like I call Mike, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with this female. She may be dying or something. She won't stop moving. And he kind of like jokingly said, like, she's not pregnant, is she? And I'm like, no, like I just got these. And I come home the next day and she had like a litter of like 6 babies. And after that, I believe that was like in 2007, 6 or 7. I was completely hooked. Like all I had made was a couple hypos and a couple normals. And I remember staring at those babies like delusions of grandeur. And I'm like, I'm going to be a boa breeder.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be a boa breeder, bro. Like I was showing pictures of these babies to everyone and just, they were just the most normal looking snakes ever. But I remember like that fire or whatever that was, like that once that was lit, like to this day, that has never gone out. And what a special moment. Like I bet you remember seeing that sun glow on top for the
Oh,
rest of your life. For the rest of your life.
yeah. That might also be because I'm autistic. People have recently told me I could be autistic. So that might be why I have this strong memory for pictures. But no, I remember exactly what that thing looked like, man. And
Yeah.
all those photos are my photo bucket, but I can't even go back
Yeah.
and get them now. But
Oh
yeah, no,
man.
so like, I'm gonna try to explain this properly. I'm a gaggy guy. Like if the dog like pukes something up on the floor, I'm gonna try not to throw up. Like I get real like gaggy.
Uh-huh.
I remember when I went in there and saw those babies in that goo, I was bare hand taking these things out one after
You mean
another. I'm like, oh my god! I'm calling my girlfriend at like midnight. I'm like, I got babies. I can't believe it. I'm like doing this thing, and then I get all the babies on. There's just goo left, and I got a t-shirt wrapped around my face. I'm gagging. I'm trying to clean this cage up. I just
you're
couldn't
doing?
handle it. But in that moment when it was live babies moving around, man, I was good. But
Yeah, I bet you remember that smell though too. Because I remember I think Jeff Ronnie used to talk about the smell, like the smell of baby goo and
yep.
like eggs. Like and I remember when I walked in my room, I remember that smell like, oh, that's different. Like that's not a regular poop.
Yep.
And yeah, that from to this day too, like that's the first thing when I go in my boa room, like I'm like, bro, there's that smell in there? Because it's game time. Like that's a cool part of the hobby. I think we all share, like very, something good's going down.
Yeah, and this is kind of a silly thing, but I mean, did you buy that Tracy Barker, Rich Eiley DVD VHS back in the day?
I did not. I wish I would have. I did not.
I still have it on VHS here,
Do
and
you
I'll be
really?
honest, I don't know if Tracy's gonna ever do any more copies of that. I'm gonna probably start pirating this thing and selling it in the parking lot at shows. But there was such an amazing part of the video. Do you remember how Rich Eiley would set up his cages going into like females giving birth?
Oh yeah,
And with,
100%.
yeah.
He had the
So
birthing tubs.
yes, genius, so cool. And then
Mhm.
in that video, at the end of the video, he's like, one of these girls is going to do it. She's like, position yourself the whole video. And then boom, at the end, she's just pushing babies in there.
Yeah.
But talking to Rich Eiley prior to me actually getting my babies on the ground this year, I'm looking at my big Freedom Breeders and my big Vision or my ARS tubs. And I'm like, I need to do something a little different. So for my first 2 litters, I just put a 32 quart container in there on the hot
Mhm.
side with bedding in it with some cypress just to see.
Uh-huh.
It was so high they couldn't get in it. No, they can get it. I'm sorry, they got in it. But what
Uh-huh.
happened with both those females is when it was time to have their babies, they got out of the tub, they pushed it just a little off the wall, and they had their babies just along the edge. And
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, okay, that's cool. So then my next litters, I think, were in March Tinley. And I was like, man, I'm just going to put some hide boxes in there. So I got like some reasonable size hide boxes, maybe just barely enough room for like a 6-pound female to go underneath. And I
Uh-huh.
put like 3 of them in there, cool side, middle, and hot.
Uh-huh.
And I come home, no babies yet. Next day, she has her babies underneath the hide box.
That's great.
Next 7, 8 females I have, even the ones that slugged out on me, I put those hide boxes in. And my one Key West het VPI girl, I came in, I looked at her, and she was underneath it. I came back an hour later, and she just had her tail underneath and nothing else. And I was like, I'm going to come back in 3 hours, and I bet you 3 hours later, I peek open, and there's just babies filling underneath that hide box. So
Yeah.
I think the way Rich Eiley put it in his video was they don't want to just have their babies in the parking lot outside the hospital, maybe. They
Uh-huh.
want somewhere they feel safe and secure. And he also made the point that what if these females hold on to the babies a little longer? And that's why some of them actually drown inside the female before they come out, because they're breaking
Yeah.
out their sex. So the female's spending so much time trying to find a safe place to put these babies.
I never thought that. Every now and then I hear something and I'm like, dude, I think about boas every single day. I've never actually thought about it in the terms of that. Like they're much more comfortable, like in a secure place. Because I've noticed, I remember Rich doing that, and the only guy I can really think of now is Tim at Imperator Morphs. He always has those large hides.
Yeah.
And what's always cool about his videos is when he pulls back the tub, like they're always all together. You know, when I have litters, they're kind of spread out. You know, they're not always clumped together. She'll have maybe a couple over here, but I always like it's I always thought it was really cool how Tim's litters are always just like clumps. So that may be something that I consider. That's a
Well,
great point.
your litters are still to come, right?
I still have more. Yep. Yeah.
Do it for fun,
Yeah.
man. Throw a couple high box in there. Like I said,
Yeah.
it was 100% for me. Every single female, even ones that slugged out, use that high box for those babies.
I will say I used to use hide boxes a lot more, but when it came to breeding season, I found that a lot of my males would go in there and just hide that weren't great breeders, and they use it to hide and get away from the females. And it always just really pissed me off. So I was like, you know what? I got away with them, but I used to use small concrete tubs from Home Depot and cut holes in them. And I felt like there was some benefit to it. But as far as the litters, I thought that's a really good point. Rich figured this stuff out 30 years ago.
Well, you know what the difference between our generation and his generation is? They had to figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this was all new for them. And because of that, they were trying different things, you know.
Yeah.
Even like Bob Applegate, another guy down in New Mexico, Arizona area, old school Kluber guy, did a lot of the king snakes, so on and so forth. You know, he talked about cages with like compartments underneath for the animals to go in that they utilize for laying eggs and everything else, and so on and so forth. Like, I think there's always new things you can learn. And again, if simply giving a couple of high boxes to a female is going to not make her hold on to the babies any longer than she needs to, that's such an easy thing to do in your enclosure. Like, it's really not asking a lot out of you.
What I've done is during breeding season, I'll often put a piece of paper over the glass if I feel like they're kind of being distracted from what I'm doing, or they're just not super interested in breeding. I'll try that out. And then when they get close to having their babies, I'll put another one over there, because I'm always in there cleaning. We have the lights on. I always feel like I'm distracting them or stressing them out a little bit. So I will do that. But I think the hide box is an even better option. I think I will try that. Yeah.
I would consider it. Like I said, it was just cool, man. Like I said, and I went in there when the one Key West was having her babies, and you saw her tail underneath there waving back and forth.
Yeah.
You saw all these little babies breaking out of the embryonic sac.
Yeah.
So, you know, I keep on, you know, it really sucks. And we made the comment beforehand that we're not very techie when it comes to computer stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we had this guy Glenn came on, and he ran the whole thing for me. He was bringing up images of his animals on the screen. I've got so many things I want to show up, but usually I just like put my phone up real close and say, look at this animal right here.
Yeah.
In that Key West Jungle Aztec IMG VPI litter, there was a female born in there. And she was in the embryonic sac, and at first I'm like, oh my, that's like all the genes. It's got to be, because it was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then she bursted out of the sack like a super Aztec, man. She was like spinning in circles, flopping about like that sack. It was wild. Not a super, because mom's a Key West. Looks like it holds every single gene in it, but it's also a paradox of some kind. And the weird thing about that for me personally is 3 or 4 years ago, I bred Key West, Jungle, and Aztec all together. I think my male was a Jungle, Jungle, Key West, VPI male, nice white looking yellow animal. So I bred that to, I think it was just like an Aztec offset anery, to be honest with you. Or no, head anery, Aztec head anery. I wanted to maybe get some double heads. I produced a male in there that was very weird. He almost looked like the Jigsaws. Remember the Jigsaws?
Oh, yeah. I remember those.
Not as extreme as a Jigsaw, which, by the way, I love the Jigsaw. I know Jeff Ronnie is really not a fan of people putting Roswell Laddertail near the Key West, but those Jigsaws early on, man, those tails, there was no tail like that.
It was Manny. When Manny made those, I remember thinking like, oh, that's a revolutionary combo. Yeah, I don't know if those we were ever able to replicate those exact looks, but I'm all for it. Like, I thought those were awesome. Someday I'd love to make some of those, but yeah, there's nothing that looked like those. Nothing.
I think a lack of trying, and I do know that Jeff frowns upon it, but he frowns upon it because he doesn't want to mix up what's a Roswell and what's a Key West on your labeling.
Yeah, and it's that goes back to the identifying stuff. I like to mix all that stuff. In a perfect world, I would love to breed Roswell, Key West, Nexus, Inca, Celtic, Raptor. I would love to breed all this stuff. But I fully realize is that, hey, I would create a lot of issues for myself being able to label them or properly even have an idea of what's going on, because some of that stuff's going to be hidden. But I mean, it'd be cool to see what it looks like. Because
cool
all those,
see what it looks like.
Yeah, all those combos that are very closely related on the whatever allele or whatever are there. I mean, you never know. I would love to see it. And you were talking about Inca. Nexus is a awesome morph that has yet to be fully utilized. I know Jeff has them, Thomas has them, Lucas and my buddy John. But every single Nexus I see, I'm like, I like that. Like, that's exactly what I like. I would say it's an even better version of Key West and maybe some of those other. But dude, and it combos out great with stuff. I don't know if you saw John Bannister's recent litter, but he bred an anery Key West Aztec Jungle Nexus Het VPI to IMG VPI, and dude, the Nexus combos that he made are nuts. They are, and all the other people that have made them, I'm like, this is going to be big. This is going to be one of the top co-dominant morphs to come, because they are really, really, they combo great with everything. They don't take away from anything. They hold up the pattern under hypo. They're everything that you'd want.
Yep. So I live in Missouri, and Jeff lives here too now. I moved out from Minnesota, and it was actually probably about 8 years ago, 7.5, 8 years ago, I went to his home, and I think that was the first year he made the Snow Nexus.
Yep.
And he took that animal on and put it in my hand. I have never seen a blue toad on a tail of a boa in my entire life.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely incredible. I took pictures of it. I can't even find the pictures anymore. Usually I save these things forever.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable looking animal. And, it's another fun backstory, man. A female that got tossed around from collection to collection until someone finally bred it. And it could be a significant mutation now.
Yeah. So here's another story. And I think when Tony had those in 2010, I think he got them. They popped up randomly in a VPI litter. I think he got them by way of Brandon Nixon, but he had the original VPI Nexus female. And I remember going over to visit him one time, and he's like, look at this. And I remember being like, oh, that's badass. That looks like a Key West. Like, that's what I thought it was immediately. There wasn't like, is that a morph? I just remember thinking like, that's cool. But I was so focused on Key West and all this other stuff. And he was like, because he was getting in and out of bows at the time. He's like, do you want her? And I'm like, I'm okay. I think I passed on it. And that's the exact female that Jeff took and bred and made all that stuff from. The same female.
Did
And
Thomas Cobb own that at one point too and sell it? I feel like it went through like 2 or 3 hands before. I think Thomas was actually one of the guys. He might have been the last guy to have it before it went to Jeff.
I thought that it was Brandon Nixon bought them from like a completely random person that produced them, and then Tony had them, but maybe Thomas did, because out of that time, I think it was around 2010, and Tony was maybe transitioning to be a little bit out of boas. But I remember being like, to this day, like every time I see a Nexus, I'm like, I'm an idiot. And that's another thing that made me, as I get a little bit older, be like, hold on. This these subtle morphs, or not so subtle, obviously, morphs need to be worked with more, because now look, 10 years later, 15 years later, like it's going to be a big deal. Like whether you know it or not, it's Nexus is going to be a big time morph with boas. It's a great underutilized tip of the iceberg that can combo like with a lot of stuff, and it's proof from the few. I mean, Lucas Matlock just made some, I think, a week or two ago, and they are nice. People should go on his page and look at the video, because I think he made IMG, Key West, Jungle, Motley Nexuses or something along those lines. And I mean, there's only one way to make that specific look of how those snakes come out. And the key to it, Justin Kabalka says this, and this is something I got from him. It's the sum of all traits. The reason why it's so beautiful is because it's the sum of all traits amplified together. You take away Key West, you take away Nexus, you take away anything, it's not going to look the same. The only way to get that specific look of what is really, really crazy is the sum of all parts. So that's another thing I'm learning as I get older. Like you just gotta make the breeding. You gotta do the breeding. You gotta make crazy stuff and hold on to that rare gem when you get all those genes to align.
So we talked about red stripe a little earlier, and I'm sure you know what the Pompeii is.
Oh yeah.
So last time I had Justin on, like one of the last questions for me was like, did he ever, like, not so much was it an accident that he made that animal, but like, did he know he was going to get there? And the way he put it was he had already been making red stripe clowns, and they weren't really wowing him.
Yeah.
And then he did that pairing, and he was, I think the way he put it, he was getting ready to jump ship on the project completely. And then he hit on that one animal that literally changed the next 10 years for what he was going to do in the hobby.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and that's the same way in boas, and even going back to that Jigsaw thing, like, where maybe it was a little frowned upon in the beginning, if you can continually replicate a Jigsaw over and over again, there is nothing like a Jigsaw.
No, you're absolutely right. That's interesting to hear someone as experienced as Justin even say that too, because he does a really great job of identifying and describing the way genes interact. He educates people really well, but even someone like him can almost miss it, which my point to that is being none of us are as experienced or as qualified or as good at breeding and identifying stuff as Justin is. So imagine all the stuff that myself, other people could be missing by not just doing the breedings or trying stuff that's different and unique. Like you may stumble onto something that's truly transcendent, and you just won't know because like you just haven't done it. So do it, see it. Hopefully this inspires people to do the breedings or take a different avenue to something, because you just don't know. So that's a really cool story.
Yeah. Even like, going back to the paradigm, like how many more years would it have taken for somebody to breed a T positive to a T negative? Because in my head, it doesn't really compute to do that, but he went for it and he produced something that was definitely unexpected.
Yeah. And there have been people that have done it in different projects and it hasn't worked out. And you kind of just got to be willing to say, hey, this doesn't work. This is not, and I guess change your plans quickly, but not everything's going to be a slam dunk. But what if you do stumble onto a paradigm? What if you do stumble onto the RLT Key West that you talked about? What's it called again? I'm blanking.
The Jigsaw?
Yeah. What if you do stumble onto that? What if you do stumble onto a Sterling? What if you do stumble onto this other stuff? Then you're going to be pretty stoked you did. So
yeah, like I said, trial and error. And by the way, I'm just going to ask you, You want to keep going a little longer? I don't know if you have some things you got to get to.
I have some other stuff I got to do, so I probably should wrap it up a little bit.
I think it's a good wrap up point, man. I
Yeah.
think we covered about half the things we probably could have talked about. So like,
Yeah.
I mentioned
Well, I'm not
before-
going anywhere. If you ever want to have me back on, or if people like it, I'll come back on and talk to you more. Have no
I think
problem.
that was a great podcast, man. That was 2 hours and 15 minutes that flew by. Like I said, I had notes over here to talk to you about stuff, and we didn't even cover anything on my notes because we were just riffing the whole time.
Well, good. I'm glad. I hope people got something out of it. I just want to inspire everyone. Get into snakes. Just find something you love. I don't care what it is. Ball pythons, blue tongue skinks, any of the stuff, and just go for it, man. Because that's pretty much all I've done. I figured out I like boas at a good time in my life, and I've just been chasing it with all my heart for quite some time now, and I'm having the time of my life. And I wouldn't change anything for the world. So,
well, like I said, I love the discussion. We talked about how you felt like we need more promoting of the species. I think we need good people. Like I said, you put up great content. I'm telling you guys, if you haven't been to LowKey Boas on Instagram, I spent like an hour on there, and I didn't even make it through that much. I just kept on watching the video over and over again. Like, girlfriend loved all the combinations, all those really cool little black specklings on the habaneros and the specter stuff. Like I said, really awesome page. Like I said, I used to really follow your work a lot more. In the last couple of years, I just haven't paid enough attention. It was great playing catch up on your page. And honestly, I love first time conversations on here. They're always my favorite conversations. Yeah. So it was good getting to know you too, man.
No, I appreciate the kind words, Dave. And hey, dude, the good news is that I got more good stuff coming, and there's a lot of. I'm very excited about some of the breeders out there that are really passionate and doing a lot of great work. I've already mentioned a lot of their names, but there's some great stuff coming, and we just need more people. So you doing this podcast just is like gold, man. So keep up the good work. And if you ever want me back on, I'd love to come on and chat some more.
I'm 100% going to take advantage of that, man. And like I said, please keep in touch. I know I will. You be safe, honestly. It was great having you on.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great day, bro. Talk to you later.
Man. Oh, okay, guys.